93.3 W228CX Indianapolis.
This is It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Indiana football has hired their new head coach.
Days after parting ways with Tom Allen, the Hoosiers have got their guy. IU announcing they've hired Curt Cignetti as their new football coach.
Curt Cignetti out of James Madison, 62 years old, said he wants to coach for another 13 years.
Yep.
So we got a long-term investment here at Indiana and Bloomington. Go, Hoosiers.
Looking right now, that smoke is now coming out of the chimney. It appears to be white. It is very much white.
Indeed.
And you can see
so
the
then
cheers.
We have a new pope.
We have a new pope, and you can hear the cheers.
And I love it. I absolutely love that. Curt Cignetti, the new head coach at Indiana. Kevin Bowen, do we think we have enough to talk about today? Colts and Titans coming up on Sunday. Indiana football with a new football coach. The Pacers last night, disastrous on defense. And then an homage to Will Levis today, who put mayonnaise in his coffee at SEC Media Days and leading up to the NFL Draft. The mayo for the YouTube audience has been purchased. It is here.
It looks so bleeping horrific in that jar.
And I am terrified. You guys have done this, and I have not done this. Good morning. How are we doing here on The Fan on this Friday?
What is uglier, the weather outside to start this month of December, or knowing that thing's going to be plopped into some coffee here in about 90 minutes.
But I got the good stuff. I did think of getting the stuff on the very bottom shelf that just says mayonnaise on a white label, and that's it. But I got the good stuff.
Well,
is that room temperature, too?
It is.
I love it.
What I'm picturing is Mike Loxley being doused in the Duke's mayo. And honestly, for Indiana fans, maybe they hope that Curt Cignetti one day would be doused in mayo at the Mayo Bowl as Indiana tries for their first bowl win in eons. Good Friday morning to everybody out there. As Andy Sweeney just said, it is loaded. I mean, the rundown could go a number of directions. Indiana does have a new football coach. The Pacers' fourth quarter was putrid last night. They made the Heat look like, I don't know, Loyola Marymount in their offensive ability there. A wild Thursday night football game. Colts-Titans coming up on Sunday. The opening of Big Ten play tonight. Big Ten Network, just settle in at 7 o'clock. You get Indiana and Purdue with a doubleheader there coming up tonight. And Butler with a really nice win at Hinkle Fieldhouse last night. A very entertaining game.
I watched a lot of that game.
As they win in overtime. So plenty to unpack from last night and obviously previewing this weekend. And you know, I kind of always forget, and maybe it's because, and, you know, shout out to Purdue. They obviously made it last year, but you almost forget, Andy, like, oh, yeah, we got a Big Ten championship inside of Lucas Oil Stadium tomorrow night. Granted, it's quite the spread between Michigan and Iowa in that one. I guess we are maybe the Mayo. Like, we're Iowa.
What do you mean
Michigan's
we're Iowa?
The coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And we're the Mayo today?
Gotcha. Yeah, we're
Would
the
that be
Mayo
fair?
today. How bad is this, by the way, before we do this? Again, for people that don't remember, Will Levis did this back at Kentucky. He got a bunch of, Instagram likes and Twitter likes and TikTok likes and everything else. And so it became a thing. I don't know, did he do it leading up to the NFL draft, or was he like, okay, now I need to
he did
focus?
it with his girlfriend, didn't he?
Yeah, well, they're not together anymore, and there's the plop. So you, Jake, and Mark did this back in what? May, April? Did you do this
right
in
before
April?
the draft. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably the week of the draft, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
I think it was the day of the draft.
Was it the day of the draft?
We did it
you waited all the way to the very last second.
I was wondering why I was in the bathroom a little bit longer on that Thursday there
So
in late April.
I have my coffee, but the only thing I need to know before we dive into, second half, fourth quarter Pacers last night, we'll dive into that. Colts-Titans, a big one there in Nashville on Sunday. Now I have my coffee. You do your coffee before you get to the studio.
Correct.
I do a little
I've gotta
bit.
make some.
Understandable. I do a little bit before, but I'm a fiend on this stuff, so I keep it going at least till about 8:30, 9 o'clock on the show. Do I need to ration some off? Is there coffee here? I've never made coffee at the Fan before. I have no idea what coffee making materials we even have.
Mark, you whipped up a pot last time, right?
Yeah, I'll do
Are you
that
going
again.
that that path again?
I'm not ruining the cup of coffee I have.
Yeah, so around 7:45, 8,
Good.
maybe Mark will fire some up. Fire alarm will probably go off. We'll call the cops because we're putting mayo in our coffee on this Friday morning. The Pacers have 82 of these, Andy, maybe 83, I guess, if they somehow get on a run in the in-season tournament. So I will put that just on the back burner for a second. Indiana theoretically only hires one football coach every couple of years. Curt Cignetti, James Madison, 62 years old. Andy Sweeney, he is a perennial winner. There is no debating that whatsoever. 13 seasons as a head coach in college football, 13 winning seasons. And don't look at the resume and think like 6-5, 7-4. I mean, this is multiple kind of, 10-win seasons, 11-win seasons. He is certainly that. You like, you don't like, you've got questions. Where are you at with the hire of Curt Cignetti?
Well, so many people on this, and we talked about him yesterday. It's like everyone wants the full package of a coach at IU, and you're just not going to get it. And when, the announcement came out, I was listening to Jake Taqueri and company, and Jake kind of said what I was thinking, that is, you're not going to get every box checked if you're an Indiana fan. Like, you're not going to get a guy who's probably super young. I know we talked about the age and everything else yesterday's in, 62, 63, that you're not going to get that and a guy that's a proven winner, right? If you go get a young guy and or a coordinator, you're going to get a guy that you don't know can win, can be a head coach, that can lead a program and everything else. And so, yeah, I mean, you look at him, how many more years is he going to be coaching? You look at him, he's won, but he has not won at the Big Ten level. He hasn't won at a Power 5 level, maybe even a Conference USA level. I like the hire. I don't listen. I know people immediately wanna make a snap judgment. It's a home run hire. Well, KB, I'm not gonna do that. I don't know if it's a home run hire. This guy seems more than competent. He has been an assistant coach under Saban and other big-time coaches. He's been around and played at big-time programs. He has led a team. If you're JMU, you're the big guy, then you're the small guy going to the big pond, are you not? I mean, that's exactly what he was. What I did like, and we'll play some of this sound coming up later on, whether it's with Pat McAfee or not, he has some cockiness to him.
Yeah, he's got some energy.
Yeah, he has some energy. He has some cockiness. He has some confidence. So I like that. Listen, on the surface, I like the hire. I'm not going to run and say he's going to start winning 8, 9, 10 games at Indiana or it's a home run hire or Dolson. He got the guy for the next decade in Bloomington. I tell you what it is. He is more solid than Tom Herman. Tom Herman was up and down, even though I like that. He's more experienced than the coordinators. And to me, this is just me, he gives me a little bit more hope than Paul Chryst. Does that make sense? So if we were looking at a Paul Chryst type guy, I like this hire more than that. Let's see what happens. But all in all, I think if you're an Indiana football fan, it's not a bad day, was it?
I thought he won the first sentence of his opening statement. And, these are December 1st wins. Let me be clear. Actions will speak much louder coming up in September. But the first words of his opening statement released by Indiana yesterday. By the way, press conference coming this afternoon for Curt Cignetti, 2:30 p.m. down in Bloomington. But his opening statement was this: I'm excited to lead this program forward and change the culture, mindset, and expectation level of Hoosier football.
Yeah.
I mean, that sums up everything you need to know about where Indiana football is an acknowledgement of where you are. I'm not sure you could find a resume, 119-35, Andy. That's the win-loss record of him. That is more of a contrast than what he's walking into. I mean, honestly, the reverse of Indiana football is probably very similar to that record over the last kind of dozen years, if you want to look at it. I also had to laugh yesterday. I was scrolling through Twitter, and I saw an Indiana fan tweet out.
Uh-oh.
I would have talked myself into the coach no matter who it was because it's fun to hope. And I think there is a lot of truth in that statement as well. Now, what do you like? Again, he's won and won and won. I think if you look at his history, you talk about working for Nick Saban. He was the recruiting coordinator at Alabama specifically. I think that element is key. Now, that was over a decade ago, to be fair. I like that he has an offensive mind. That is where the background is, was a quarterback. Comes from a big coaching family. All of that. What you maybe don't like or what is an unknown, I'll repeat what I said yesterday. Find me, and this is a little bit of an ageist comment, and I don't know how else to express it without saying that, because, again, when you watch him or you see him or hear him speak, You don't think 62 years old. At least I don't. But, Andy, find me 62-year-old head coaches that have taken on a rebuild at a Power 5 level, and it's been successful. I can't really find any. So that, I think, is a question that you would have. The other question is, how big of a jump is he making? Is coaching football just coaching football? Or is this a guy going from CYO to the top of college football?
Well,
how big, what is life? Did James Madison deal with NIL?
Well, building Indiana's football NIL is his number one task. Probably getting a quarterback and doing those sorts of things. By the way, did you hear his 10-second hello to the Indiana fan base? Play this, Mark. This is Cignetti yesterday on his Twitter account.
Hoosier Nation, Curt Cignetti here, Coach Sig. I'm excited to get going. I'm all in. Look out for the Hoosiers. We're going to get this thing rolling one day at a time.
One day at a time.
I wanted him to have the cigarette in the mouth.
Coach Sig, that's the best part. Coach
I love
Sig.
the Marlboro jerseys we're seeing for Indiana right now. Can those be the alternates?
Like 35 years ago, you could have marketed around Coach Sig.
Oh, 1,000%.
You could have had him on a horse with the Marlboro Man.
So I feel like
Packing Newports out of his back pocket or something.
I feel like that question, though, Andy, of how big of a jump is this?
That's fair. It's fair.
But it's kind of unknown. Again, someone would counter and say, building a program at any level is just like building a program, and coaching football is coaching football, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's a little naive not to act like the Big Ten is just some ho-hum conference. I mean, if you look at the rankings right now, with Oregon and Washington coming into the fold, you got 4 of the top 6,
no, it's
you
a
got
loaded
5
conference.
of the top 10. So
yeah.
That's a question I have is he in the shallow end and now he's jumping into the ocean? That is, I think, a question to be had with that.
But think about this, KB. You were always going to get that question unless it was...
But would you've gotten that with Paul Chryst? No.
Paul Chryst would have been the
Tom
one.
Herman, not really.
Yeah, but Tom Herman did fail miserably at Texas. Now, he was in the midst where coaches were...
Failed miserably accurate
We're
to describe Texas?
We're churning through. We had to think around that time. Until they got Sark, Texas was churning through coaches, right? And so that was becoming one of those jobs almost where it's like, well, if you go to Texas, almost like A&M now a little bit. I think you were always going to get that. Like, if there was a coordinator that was hired, it's can he run his own program? Is he going to be able to be an actual head coach? It's different being being the assistant head coach or whatever. Mike Hart, what was Mike Hart? Running backs or offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. I guess my thing is I'm giving this hire the benefit of the doubt, but what I'm doing is I'm not overdoing it. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not acting like it's this is a home run hire. They got their guy and everything else.
Build the statue next to night.
I am cautiously optimistic that they have a guy that can run a program. And when you talk about rebuilding Indiana, I mean, I hate saying this, but this is where they are. You have mentioned this. Go be at least like a Maryland.
Right. You are drowning right now. Just float.
Just float.
I'm not asking you to be Michael Phelps.
Get to 7 wins.
Just float.
Get to the Duke Mayo Bowl.
Sure.
Get to something.
Hell, I'll take. What is the Motor City still around? I'll take that bowl game. Just get to the Tuesday night bowl game on December 19th to get things started here. Jennifer chimes in, goes, should Cignetti coach in JMU's bowl game?
He is. He said he was. Right?
I'm kind of like this, Andy. He deserves no preparation whatsoever for that bowl game. He needs to invest zero time. If he wants to be a figure on JMU's sideline with the headset on for 3 hours, I'd literally fly him in the night before the game, and he'd fly right out after the game. If he wants to do that and show some respect to the program that he's been at, sure. But he better spend zero time. Because right now, your time is Donovan McCauley, get back here.
Right.
All 5 starting offensive linemen, try and get back here.
Transfer portals next week.
Try and get back here. He's got no ties to the Midwest, if you want to look at that, at least in a while, from a recruiting standpoint.
Wendy's Peppermint Frosty is back for the holidays,
that you do that,
so take some time to
well.
chill this year.
No, it's
Limited
okay.
time only.
We have our
Wendy's.
ESPN. The ESPN clocks are still on, I believe. Yeah, I believe the computers have taken over. See, I know what's happened.
Is that the robot that did my hair a couple weeks ago?
I know what's happened. And Mark Dykton's going to have to alert someone, and I don't know. Here's what's happened. Last Friday, where were we, KB? We were at home, right? You were in bed. You were taking care of the kids.
Finals.
Whatever
started,
whatever you were doing. So ESPN Radio was on. So the ESPN Radio grid is still on in the computer system for this Football Friday for us.
Do we need to hack in this?
Someone's going to have to. I don't know the protocols.
Emails are out.
Well, I don't know the protocols.
In a way, I guess the start of that show, or this show, I should say, was like the Pacers' first 3 quarters, and that right there was like the fourth quarter.
How worried are you? This defense is so bad, man.
Like,
the defense is so bad.
Andy,
it can't be this bad.
Miami scores 142 last night.
Yeah, they average 110.
They had not scored more than 129 in a game all season. 142. Bam Adebayo doesn't play the second half.
He doesn't even play. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like when Butler's off the floor there, late third to start the fourth, and they expand it without Bam, without Butler. You imagine if you told the Pacers take away Halliburton for 5 minutes and, whoever is the sidekick, which is probably a question as well. Again, who is that sidekick for you right now? I thought the Pacers got punked in the fourth quarter. I mean, I was really pleased with the effort through three quarters. Like, okay, this is what you want to see from response on the road, et cetera, et cetera. And then that fourth quarter, just absolutely awful. And I tweeted last night, with the in-season tournament next week, what we know is this. You've got the home game with Boston on Monday. No matter what happens Monday, if you win, you go to Vegas. If you lose, you're going to go on the road for that second game. It'll either be in Milwaukee or in New York.
Yeah, good team.
What that means is this, Andy. That game on Monday against the best team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics, that is your only home game between now and December 18th. We're going to learn a whole lot about Rick Carlisle and his bunch here in the first couple of weeks of December. This is I think it's the first major gut check,
agreed,
look in the mirror moment for multiple weeks coming up here for the Pacers. 142-132. They lose to Miami last night, and we'll get to a lot of that here on today's show.
And we have to get our picks to the Colts. I mean, it's such a big game on Sunday.
I think
with
we could
everything
disagree
happening
on this one.
Oh, okay. You don't think it's a big game on Sunday?
No.
I mean, they're all big games on Sunday.
I mean,
obviously.
with our picks.
Oh, okay, nice.
I think
you think you know which way I'm going?
Maybe I was premature with that.
Now remember, I picked the Titans last time around. I'll be honest with you.
Maybe the mail will spark something different.
Maybe I have absolutely no idea what I'm picking. When we get to our picks right now, I don't know who I'm taking.
And by the way, we did get an announcement yesterday. I think we're kind of hinting at this with you guys, but Colts-Steelers is now going to be 4:30 on Saturday, December 16th. And I listed it yesterday on Twitter. That is quite the day in the state of Indiana. You've got Kansas and Indiana at Assembly Hall at noon or 12:30, one of the two, on that Saturday. And then I honestly feel bad that Purdue and Arizona don't get the standalone time slot. That's 1 versus 2 over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse at 4:30 as well. NFL says we don't care. Colts and Steelers at 4:30 that same day over at Lucas Oil Stadium. Mark, is it safe to break? I'm a little nervous.
I've been told it's fixed now.
Okay.
It's literally knowing that system. It's about 2 clicks of a mouse can fix the entire thing.
Good night at Hinkle last night and a big college basketball night as the Big Ten season gets underway. We'll touch on all of it here on this rainy Friday morning to start the month of December. Thanks for spending it with us. It is the wake-up call of KB and Andy on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Bullseye
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, worth breaking down the rest of our show here. Bennett Conlin going to join us from JMU Sports News. He'll join us coming up here in about 15 minutes. Greg Rakestraw, 8 o'clock. Matt Taylor, voice of the Indianapolis Colts, will join us at 9 o'clock. Let's start with the Pacers. Last night, rough fourth quarter, really rough second half. 142-132, your final there in Miami. Rick Carlisle, postgame.
We got to play better. We got to play better. It's a 48-minute game. It's not a 36-minute game. If it was a 36-minute game, there'd be a lot of teams with better records, But we'll look at it. There's no excuses. No excuses. I do know there were a lot of small defensive mistakes that lead to baskets for them, and that kills momentum. It takes us out of transition, and so these are things we got to shore up as well.
Andy, I remember saying to you about a week ago, am I just resigned to the fact that the Pacers are going to have to outscore? Like, they're going to be terrible on defense. They can't even get to bad. It's just going to be, you've got to get to 140 before the opponent. Like, we're now almost 20 games into the season. That's a fourth of the way through. It's almost like I'm there. I just don't see where it's going to get better. And to add to it last night, no Bam Adebayo in the second half. That's a key loss for Miami, and yet you squandered, I thought, a really good first three quarters. Throughout. So, again, they'll stay in Miami. God, boy, pray for them tonight in Miami. Tomorrow night is an 8 o'clock tip there in South Beach before they come back for that quarterfinal game against Boston on Monday.
Every Pacers game reminds me of an all-star game. It's high scoring and no defense.
Boy, you're not wrong.
So
you're really
true.
not wrong.
All right, Colts' final practice of the week is today. Juju Brents remains out, so that's looking at a fifth straight game miss, which is a bummer in the short term and the long term. Plus, I think back to DeAndre Hopkins in week 5. I know Hopkins hasn't been great with Will Levis, but still, that is of concern. It's a 1-point spread. The Colts favored over the Titans. Did see Levis was a full participant yesterday in Tennessee's practice. So I know we had some questions on that end. But obviously a big one coming up here on Sunday afternoon. And last night, guys, that was a highly entertaining Thursday night football game. For the fifth time in NFL history, you had a game in which neither team punted the football. The Cowboys scored the final 14 points of the game, 41-35, Cowboys over Seahawks. That is now 14 straight home wins for Jerry's team.
Also, a ton of penalty flags. My God.
Yeah, it was riddled with penalties, but not only that, the over-under on that was like 48.
Big plays in general, just huge plays.
It was like 48 was the over-under, I think. 48-49. Dallas had 41 by themselves last night.
Do you believe in Dallas or no? That's my Super Bowl team. Come on now.
I know. Well, you're going to make me pick one of my most hated rivals. They're okay.
They've got the Eagles next week.
I know they do.
Just okay.
Philly's beat up. No, they're a pretty good team.
14 straight home wins, and they're just okay.
If they
Settle down just a little bit.
Thank you. Settle down. The playoffs are a different thing. Dak will get in those playoffs and he'll melt like he always does.
And they won't be at home in the playoffs unless they upset Philly.
They were in many other divisions. They'd be leading, but Philly's that good. Let's go to college basketball real quick. Obviously, tonight we had the doubleheader. You mentioned get in front of the TV. Big Ten Network, Indiana, Maryland, 7 o'clock. Purdue on the road at Northwestern. Then last night at Hinkle, good game as Butler moves to 6-2 on the year. Overtime winners 103.
It's a highly entertaining game.
Big game. Here's Thad Matta post game.
Big win for our program. There's no doubt about that, because I think all the work that these guys have put in, not only as a team but individually, to see them get that type of win in this type of environment. Hinkle was rocking tonight, and proud of these guys.
Yeah, I thought Thad handled the end of regulation really well. Texas Tech's possession wasn't really going anywhere. Then all of a sudden, boom, they get a layup to force it into overtime. And he is yelling, 5 minutes, 5 more minutes, doing the whole clapping and everything. And his team responded to that really, really well in overtime. So Butler's got a few nice wins on the resume early in the year, which resume and Butler is not something we've said in recent years. So Thad Matta, good work here in year 2. By the way, for tonight, Purdue is a 7.5-point favorite at Northwestern. Remember, this was one of the few losses last year for Purdue. Boo Boo, he had a big night last year in this home game for Northwestern. Indiana, a 2.5-point favorite. Xavier Johnson sounds a bit iffy for tonight as he dealt with that foot injury in their last game out against Harvard. I feel like that covers.
Yeah, I didn't see Maryland's 4-3 on the year. Wow, what a rough start for them.
Jordan Geronimo,
Yikes.
former Hoosier, in their starting lineup. And again, college football this weekend over at Lucas Oil Stadium tomorrow night. It will be the Wolverines of Michigan. Coach Harbaugh, back in the stadium, he's in the Ring of Honor.
That's our guy.
22.5-point favorite. That is a large one against Iowa. It is wild that 10-2 Iowa is a 3-touchdown underdog.
And it's wild that they're 10 wins and they scored 9 points a game.
So true. You got any upsets here? Are you surprised by tonight? How about tonight?
Oh, tonight's such a big game.
On our airwaves.
Oh, it's such a big game.
Undefeated Washington against one-loss Oregon. Washington gave Oregon, in a great game earlier this year, that one loss. Oregon, with the one loss, is favored by 10.
Yeah, and if Oregon wins, they're in. I mean, that would be rough, but this is such a big game. The SEC's going to be watching this game. The ACC and Florida State, they're going to be watching this game. By the way, the Florida State line is down to 1.5. There are strong rumors out there that Florida State could be down to their third-string quarterback in this game. So what I think is going to happen here, I think Louisville beats Florida State. I think Louisville's going to beat Florida State. And, the committee is hoping that happens so they don't have to put Florida State in, so they can put a second SEC team in or end up having to put Texas in if Texas can win the Big 12. It's going to be a fun Saturday.
Speaking of college football, on the other side, Bennett Conlin, he works for JMU Sports, has covered Curt Cignetti. We'll get a little bit more insight into him and looking ahead to Colts and Titans coming up on Sunday afternoon. Thanks for starting off this month of December with us. It is the Wake Up Call. KB and Andy.
the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Who's Curt Cignetti? We'll find out coming up in about 5 minutes. Bennett Conlon going to join us, JMU Sports News. We'll talk with him about that. Greg Rakestraw coming your way at 8 o'clock, Matt Taylor at 9, and then jammed in between at some point here on 8:30 because of Will Levis putting the mayo in the coffee leading up to the draft. We'll be doing the same. I have the mayo right here. Bought it yesterday at Kroger. So there
Pray
you go.
for the plumbing here on the 6th floor at Radio 1. God, that looks awful. Plop it up, folks.
You at least know. You know how it tastes. You know what to expect. I'm sitting over here blind, horrified, terrified. I've been, Will Levis has been in my life for years, and I have not done this, and now I sit here in Indianapolis, and I have to do it.
Is the only Will Levis concern for Sunday this? Got a big arm. We all saw it, a month ago in his debut? I mean, put up, huge numbers against the Falcons. That's really been the only game he's put up notable numbers. But remember last week, Andy, our Colts secondary lost Mike Evans a few key times. And I feel like there's been some communication issues on the back end. And that offensive line for Tennessee is bad. So they've got to do a lot to hold up in pass protection. But I'm curious, they're going to try a couple deep balls. They got to play to Levis' strength. Can they hit on a couple? I think, considering the Colts have had some secondary questions this season. Again, last week we saw it a few times. That's Levis's bread and butter. They don't want to beat you death by 1,000 paper cuts, dunking their way down the field. I think that is a question. Part of it is on your pass rush. Again, Tennessee's O-line is decimated. And are you able to kind of make sure that they are behind schedule? You get them in third and disadvantages, let your pass rush pen back. Because if they can set up some of those deep shots, Levis does have the arm to try and connect on those.
Yeah, Levis has the arm. I would say what surprises me the most about Will Levis thus far this season is that he hasn't, and I know he has 2 interceptions in 5 games, but he hasn't been the turnover machine that he was at Kentucky. That's one reason why I think a lot of people were down on him. If you watched a lot of him at Kentucky he made careless throws. He fumbled the ball. Like, you always felt like the game-losing interception was about to happen. Now, in the Pittsburgh game, which was that Thursday night game, if you remember, his second start.
First road start.
Yeah, he threw the interception at the end of the game. Talking to a couple buddies who are Titans fans, they weren't too worried about that. He's just trying to do something there, right? Trying to get the ball into the end zone at the end of the game with time running out. So that one has almost been moved aside. I got to be honest, I'm not sure exactly how bad the Tampa Bay interception was. But for me, I look at this game early analysis. If I were to pick Indy to win the game, I would look and I would say, is this defense, which, is top 10 in sacks, they've got her, 11 sacks, I think it is, the last couple weeks.
Pressure lately.
They've dialed up more pressure. Are they going to let a rookie quarterback who is already a little unsure of himself, who has a little bit of an ankle injury, just do the one thing to beat them, which is go deep, which Atlanta let him do? In other words, this defense, losing that kind of game, it's different losing even if you would have lost to Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield, maybe a little bit more of an established guy. Mike Evans having a great season, having a Pro Bowl season. Godwin is there. Like, to me, are you going to let Will Levis beat you in this game? And if I'm picking the Colts, I would say no to that. It might be ugly. It might be 2017, but it might fit the mold as well, Kevin, of beating a bad team who's down and out on their luck this season.
Yeah, and again, it starts with Tennessee's run game, of course. And if Henry can get going and they can stay on schedule, that's huge. I think if you make Levis play from behind, chain-wise, third and longs, then he can look like the Kentucky guy. But if you let Henry get going, and this is it. This is the final game without Grover Stewart. It's almost like you started without Stewart, and Cleveland gassed you in a few key moments. Now you end without Stewart in this 6-game cycle. Do we see it show up again? That is a worry I have because you were so good against Henry back in week 5, and yet Tennessee still had chances.
You wish it was a 5-game suspension for the for the mask agent or whatever he took.
I think that's obviously a huge storyline coming up on Sunday.
All right, let's get to the Payless Liquors hotline. Let's learn something about Curt Cignetti here. JMU Sports. Bennett Conlon joins us here on the program. Bennett, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. But it's hard to get guests in the 7 o'clock hour. We do appreciate it. I guess, what is the reaction there? Coach Sig leaving, going to Bloomington. What has been the reaction after such a great season there with JMU?
Yeah, I think there's certainly some disappointment among JMU fans just because Cignetti is a very good coach and had a ton of success at JMU, going 52-9 over 5 seasons. He led them into the FBS and I think was more impressive than anybody expected at the FBS level. So there was a hope among fans that Cignetti would stick around for at least one more year with that expanded 12-team playoff next year and potentially a spot for the Dukes in a group of 5 teams. So some disappointment, but also sort of a respect and admiration for what Cignetti accomplished in Harrisonburg.
Bennett, how would you describe Curt Cignetti on the sidelines? I guess coaching style, how JMU played the game, if you will, just more of kind of the football coach. How would you describe Coach Sig?
Yeah, so he builds kind of from the trenches first. So he wants a good offensive line, a good defensive line. I think the part about Cignetti that people maybe overlook or don't understand is that he's willing to adjust based on his personnel. So JMU, for example, this year came into the season, returned a lot of running backs, had a good offensive line. There was an expectation with some questions at quarterback that they would be a run-heavy offense. They kind of tried to do that through the first 5 weeks of the year. It didn't work the way they had hoped. Their running offense is one of the least efficient in the Sun Belt. They were winning games, but they were close games. The offense was really inconsistent. Then they had a bye week, and they came out of the bye week as a pass-first offense. They looked pretty much a lot different. They were a lot more explosive, a much better offense. They ended up having their quarterback win Sun Belt Player of the Year, and they had 2 receivers go over 1,000 yards. So they went from what expected to be sort of this run-heavy, physical offense to a group that was just throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game. So he's really willing to adjust. His focus is going to be offensive line, defensive line. They spread you out on offense, but do some different groupings based on their personnel. And then defensively, they ran pretty much a 4-2-5 all year. Great defense. And I think the expectation, at least from what we've heard around Harrisonburg, is that he plans on bringing quite a bit of his staff with him.
And then I guess on the flip side of that, maybe describe him a little bit more off the field. It's funny when we saw him, and obviously Pat McAfee, a lot of local ties here to Indy, when we saw him make that appearance with McAfee when
that was
College
awesome.
Game Day was there.
Dude, that was awesome.
That was high energy. You talk about a dude marketing for his program and playing to the crowd. He checked all those boxes. How would you describe Curt Cignetti off the field?
Yeah, he's a fun guy. He's super candid, so you're going to get some good quotes. I would say he's a bad quote during fall camp. He'll tell you pretty much nothing about his team during fall camp. But once the season kicks off, he's very candid about who's going to play, who's not going to play, certain things they're doing that he likes, things that he doesn't like. He was pretty open this year at times with calling out the starting quarterback and sort of challenging him publicly, which seemed to work. He ended up winning Sun Belt Player of the Year. So he's a great quote, an interesting guy. Unique character, but somebody, who's super loyal to his staff, his players, and the fan base. So when he goes somewhere, he commits pretty hard to what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. So I think fans will really appreciate him. He's somebody that knows how to win, and he's not doing a ton of coach speak, which I think JMU fans appreciated.
Bennett Conlon with us here on the Wake Up Call. He's from JMU Sports News, talking Curt Cignetti, of course, being hired officially yesterday in Bloomington. You mentioned he's going to be bringing a ton of that staff with him. What notable names do we need to know here as that transition is going to be happening over the next couple days?
Yeah, I think the 3 names that JMU fans thought of as internal hires, and I think the athletic director shot that down yesterday, so it seems unlikely that they'll be hired by JMU. But you got the offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, defensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes, and then I'm sure Indiana would love to have a quarterbacks coach, Tino Sunseri. So all 3 of those guys are young coaches that have had a lot of success. They've been with Cignetti for multiple seasons. They're a huge part of JMU's success. The players really respond to them, good recruiters. I think they're all really well in sync in terms of understanding what Cignetti wants, why they want to do it, but then also having a willingness to share their own ideas and change scheme throughout the season as needed based on their personnel. So if you get if you're an Indiana fan, you're able to get Shanahan and Haynes as your coordinators. I think you're probably overjoyed. So that seems like it's certainly a realistic possibility at this point. And, I think Indiana fans should be pretty excited if that's your sort of the bulk of the staff.
The south side of Indianapolis curious if Roncalli legend Patrick Kuntz, the defensive line coach, will be making the trip back here. Absolute legend, Mr. Kuntz there. Okay, Bennett, last one for me. And again, Bennett Conlin, co-founder of JMU Sports, joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. We're getting to know Curt Cignetti a little bit more. Curt Cignetti, by the way, will be on with JMV coming up at 5:30 today. How much of a rebuild, because on paper it doesn't look like there was much at all. I guess how much of a rebuild was JMU when he took over, or it might be a dumb question because I'm like, wait, weren't they just in the national title a couple of years before he took over?
Yeah, so not much of a rebuild there. I think his other stops, IUP and Elon, were really impressive. The Elon one, they played in the same conference this CAA as JMU did when they were both at the FCS level. Elon was not a very good team. They were not used to winning, not expecting to win. He made them good immediately. 8-4 his first year. 6-5 his second year is super misleading. They started the year extremely strong, and their starting quarterback got hurt, and they had I think their starting running back also got hurt. So they were 8-4 his first year there, 6-5 his second year. They were a much better team than that 6-5 record suggests. I think that was the year. That was the year they beat an undefeated JMU. JMU fans were talking about their team like they might have like a historically great team through 5 weeks. Elon came to Harrisonburg and upset them. I think JMU was like a 35-point favorite. So Cignetti's a really good coach. He's turned a couple places around that weren't winning a lot of football games. JMU wasn't one of those, but he sort of came in and immediately took the Dukes from a winning program, maintained that. And then I would say if you want to say a rebuild of any sorts, going into the FBS, the way he developed depth across the roster was really impressive given the scholarship increase you get once you move up levels. I thought he handled that really impressively and also navigated a COVID season for the Dukes where they played it in the spring in 2020 and then in the fall in 2021. So really small off season there, and they ended up going 19-3 over that stretch despite, potential injury risk and all that stuff. So not necessarily rebuilding at JMU, but the challenges he faced, I think, were unique to any other previous coach in the school's history.
All the reports, Bennett Conlin with us. We're talking JMU as obviously Curt Cignetti goes to Bloomington. All the reports have Coach Sig going, and by the way, I love that. That's what I'm calling him, Coach Sig. Have him coaching the bowl game. Around here, I'm not sure exactly how to take that. He's got a big rebuild here in Bloomington. Was that important to him or the school? How did that go down, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. The school, based on the athletic director, seemed like it was relatively important to JMU to have him coach that. I imagine Cignetti, part of him wanted to finish out the season with the Dukes just because they've had such a special year. He's shown in the past that he's pretty good at juggling multiple responsibilities. So I think coaching a team for a bowl, it sounded like what he was saying to local media sort of before he left for Indiana as well, is that he would have been recruiting focused at JMU regardless. During this time where they pretty much have their practice schedule, they do that. They watch a little bit of film, but there's, especially early on, there's not a time because they don't even know their bowl opponent yet. So I think he'll be able to juggle that pretty reasonably, where I think he'll be excited to have one last game on the sidelines. And I'm sure his primary focus during the next 2 weeks is going to be recruiting for Indiana, would be my expectation.
Bennett, appreciate the insight on Curt Cignetti. I know it's probably been a busy 24-hour period for you, so thanks for waking up with us on this Friday morning, and have a great weekend, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Bennett Conlin, JMU Sports, right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Again, Curt Cignetti going to come up with a JMV later today. Press conference at 2:30 from Bloomington. I believe that'll be streamed live on the various IU social channels. If you look at it, Andy, I find it interesting. Purdue and Indiana make a coaching hire each of those programs in the last 12 months. Ryan Walters is the fourth youngest head coach in college football, comes from a defensive background, comes from major college football. On the flip side of it, Curt Cignetti is nearly 25 years older than Ryan Walters, head coach for over a decade. Walters obviously was not a head coach before coming to Purdue. He's not been at the major college football level for quite some time.
I do remember Sunseri. I do remember he mentioned Sunseri.
Tino.
Yeah.
Would you rather have the younger Walters defensive guy? Would you rather have the established head coach, the guy that's won and built some programs, albeit not really close to this level in Curt Cignetti?
I think for Indiana, I'm fine with them doing what they did because they need to get back to at least 7 wins.
A perennial loser needed a perennial winner?
Yes. I think that's the best way to put it. Put that on a T-shirt. I'm sure Indiana fans would love that.
Can we get the cigarette at the bottom of it?
Get the cigarette. I know. Again, 35 years ago, Coach Sig could have been something we had fun with. Let's play this as well. You alluded to this earlier. He was on with Pat McAfee when they were at JMU and College Game Day was there. McAfee was doing his show. This is about 20 seconds. This is Cignetti getting the mic and talking to the masses.
Now, does he reference the NCAA
this
here?
This is the exact soundbite.
Let's provide a little context for people that are unfamiliar with JMU's story. Because they made the rise to the football subdivision, I believe 2 years ago.
They had to wait.
They are not eligible for their conference title or a bowl game. It sounds like that might change, though. So this was Curt Cignetti trying to pump up the crowd and I guess take a shot at the organization a couple miles down the road from us.
Do we like the NCAA? Unreal. Do we like Pat? Nice throw. Do we love the Dukes?
Do we love the Hoosiers?
He's referring to Duke's Mayo.
I was going to say, was he saying the Mayo
right
there, or was that
exactly
the James Madison nickname? Yeah, again, when I saw that,
I
Andy,
like that.
And I started to look more into Curt Cignetti, I'm like, wait, that dude's 62?
I like it.
I mean, he's one of the older college football head coaches. I'm like, first off, he doesn't look 62, and his energy level is certainly not that at all. So, again, Curt Cignetti today will be making a little bit of the rounds. We're hoping to have him on the show at some point next week. All right, coming up at 8 o'clock, lot to cover with Greg Rakestraw. Again, we'll continue to get you set for Big Ten openers tonight for Indiana and Purdue. Those will be on Big Ten Network at 7 and 9 o'clock. Butler with a big win last night and an ugly, ugly fourth quarter for the Pacers down in South Beach. The Tyrese Halliburton stat line, I'll leave you with this, and Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted this out late last night. Tyrese Halliburton last night, Andy, had a career-high 44. Halliburton for the month of November, he averaged 28 points and 11 assists. He also shot 53% from the floor, 47% from three. Woj tweeted, in the history of the NBA, guys to average at least 25 and 10, that's 10 assists, in a month, and at least shoot 50% and 40%. Again, Halliburton was 47, but 50% from the floor, 40% from three. Halliburton joins a list that has 2 names on it in the history of the NBA.
Ooh, I love these. Okay, who are the 2 names? I did not see this tweet.
Michael Jordan.
Okay, he's pretty good.
And LeBron James.
Okay, there he goes. It's pretty good.
How good is Tyrese Halliburton?
Well, I mean, that's one
and
of the
how
things,
much of a shame is it that we're talking about a 9-8 basketball team?
That's what scared me is he cannot play better basketball, and they're 9-8 on the season. I mean, he's been great.
LeBron did it twice. MJ did it once. Halliburton did it in November. Insane wants to make you cheer and cry at the same time. We'll do all those emotions with Greg Rakestraw next.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Greg Rakestraw going to join us here in just a second. Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, will join us his normal Friday 9 o'clock slot with us. We'll give you our picks. I'm not sure if that matters. Although I was right last week, we'll give you our picks of the Colts and Titans. And then Mark Dykton's going to be leaving the studio here. And he will be putting on a pot of coffee, and we will be doing sports radio hijinks coming up at about 8:30. We will be putting the Will Levis mayonnaise in the coffee, something Levis made popular at Kentucky and then leading up to the NFL draft.
Do you think Rake has ever done that?
That'll be a lot of fun. Well, let's get him going. Rake, have you ever put the mayo in the coffee? You want to do that? You want to come by?
No. I am a mayo connoisseur. I am a coffee connoisseur. I am not crossing the streams. That sounds utterly disgusting.
Yeah, I'm fearful. I know Mark and KB, they've done this. I have not done this, even though I followed and watched every snap that Levis took there
I've heard
at
it tastes
Kentucky.
a lot better the second time around.
Is that what you hear?
Uh-huh.
Well, we'll see. What's your favorite mayonnaise then? We have Duke's Mayo. That's what we're going to roll with here in about 25 minutes.
You know, it's kind of like Office Space. I celebrate the entire catalog, Andy.
That's fantastic. Well, let me start here. Greg Rakestraw on the Payless Liquors hotline. Curt Cignetti gets hired. Press conference today at around 2:30. He's going to be on with JMV at about 5:30. I thought Kevin said it best. The perennial winner for the perennial loser taking over there in Bloomington. I don't know how much you know of him. What do you make of the hire?
I think it's the best hire you can make. Is it going to lead to success? I have no idea, because there have been a lot of talented people, and it has been rare that someone has won consistently at IU. You know, Bill Mallory has the longest stretch of success. You've got John Pont that has that comet of 1967. You've got Bo McMillan during World War II, when Indiana was a good football team for a good chunk of the 40s. You know, you can't ignore what Tom did for back-to-back years in 19 and 20. What we thought Terry Hepner was trending towards doing in Bloomington. But there have been a lot of talented football minds that have not won in B-Town. Good news, bad news is that the way you play the game in terms of recruiting, facilities, et cetera, has now completely changed. You also have never had a Big Ten like this one that spans the entire country and has 18 teams. And so I think of the available candidates, Cignetti's resume is as good as anybody. I think it's the best hire that Scott Dolson could make. Is it going to lead to success? I have no earthly idea. I have decades of evidence that tell me it probably won't.
Rake's probably an unfair question, but I find it interesting. The last 12 months, you've seen very different hires from Purdue and Indiana. Purdue hires one of the youngest head coaches in college football, a first-time head coach, a heavy defensive background, has been at this major college football level, though, throughout his coaching career. On the flip side of it, Indiana hires a guy that is nearly 30 years older, has an extensive head coaching background, but has not been at this level in quite some time. More of an offensive background as well. Which one makes more sense to you?
Both can make sense. And Kevin, what always usually happens in a coaching hire? You tend to go in the opposite direction you were in if you feel the program needs a change.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, maybe you could say that Purdue didn't exactly need a change. Not from a record standpoint. I think some of the folks behind the scenes were relieved that Jeff Brom was moving on, at least just from a personality standpoint, and not with the record on the field. That was solid, more years than not. But because Tom Allen, clearly a defensive guy, and it didn't work the last 3 years, what direction you're heading? You're going to head in the opposite direction. So I am a big believer in it's about best available fit. And it's a little bit different in college than, say, the pros, where the roster is established. You go, okay, we need this type of coach because we have these type of players. Well, these days, more so than ever before, it is a blank canvas. You want to start your team over? Fine. Everybody out. Let's all jump in the portal. Let's see who we can bring in. And so really it's about who do you think the best fit is? Mike Babinski thought that going with a younger coach who was just across the state line, who had Big Ten experience, felt that was the way to go for the program. We can't say that it was the wrong fit after the first year, 4-8. Jury is still out. Many people felt you wanted to get a guy that knew about being a head coach, that has had a track record of success, that leaned towards being an offensive guy. He checked all those boxes for IU. I think both of them can work out, and I think really it's about whatever you feel is the best fit for your program at that time.
Greg Rakestraw with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. You're going to be on that post game with the Colts and Titans, and we're going to be talking about that game a lot here the second half of the show. You know, you look at the first time around, so much has changed from the 23-16 win the Colts had earlier in Lucas Oil. Of course, the game, Anthony Richardson was injured. What do the Colts need to do for you, Rake, to have a positive, happy post game show on Sunday?
Their formula for success is amazingly simple. Win the turnover battle, win the game. Obviously, when you are taking on the Tennessee Titans, you know, goals 1 through 78, stop the guy wearing number 22. Easier said than done in total, especially the case without Grover Stewart. Last game that Grover will miss, his absence we felt dramatically. I'm sure you guys have touched on this. I'm not sure at the NFL level I have seen a team that is as Jekyll and Hyde at home and the road as the Tennessee Titans. 4-1 at home, 0-6 on the road. That is a somewhat baffling stat, to be honest. We talk about home field advantage; it's never usually that pronounced. It seemingly is for that team, and so it's going to be a lot of bend but not break because again, the Colts have given you 5 games worth of can't really stop the run without Grover Stewart on the field. You know that's what Tennessee does well. Will Levis will not be asked to pass the football a lot. But if you can force him into making mistakes, and if this team can make fewer mistakes than the Titans, again, 11 games of evidence now have shown, Colts in the turnover battle, they're probably going to win the game. And so to me, we can all say, hey, stop Derrick Henry. Colts aren't going to do that. They're just not. But can they win the turnover battle against a rookie quarterback? Yeah, I think they can. And if they do that, they can get to 7-5.
Okay, Greg Rakestraw is with us here, ISC Sports Network. Greg, if you don't mind, can we go back to last weekend in the IHSAA state finals? Do we have any numbers yet on how things looked from a streaming-only standpoint here in 2023?
Not that have been shared with me at this point, so unfortunately I don't have an answer for you on that question.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get one at some point. Shifting gears then, basketball-wise, obviously historic season last year for the Giants of Ben Davis. We saw a couple big transfers here locally in Jalen Harrelson and Kanan Catchings. Certainly the Flory Badunga storyline is one to watch this year at Kokomo. What is on your high school basketball mind as we now kind of shift towards that?
It is shootout/event season. So, for example, this Saturday is Sneakers for Santa shootout. We have that on ISC. The 2 games that I get to call on my Indy TV tomorrow night are Lawrence North and Brownstown Central, followed by Center Grove and Attucks. Next weekend, it's the Forum Tip-Off Classic. Hey, we have that too. It's the Phil Cox Memorial Tournament in Kokomo. Obviously, anytime you can show Flory Badunga, you get a lot of eyeballs. We had their season opener against Westfield that Westfield won last Saturday. Hall of Fame Classic, Paul Logan Classic, etc. From a local standpoint, so far Brownsburg and Fishers have played well without their star players. How long can that translate? They both have really good coaches in Steve Lynch and Garrett Weiniger, so I think they can be successful. At what point does that talent drain, star player, et cetera, at what point does that give you fits in terms of the state tournament? We're 3 months away from that, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I think Lawrence North, when fully healthy, might be the best team. They're not fully healthy just yet. It's kind of questionable if Stink Robinson's going to play in tomorrow night's game. He's kind of dealing with an injury, and Jared Good, one of their solid I think it's named him by his dad's name. I'm spacing on the son's name. Anyway,
did you say the one kid's name was Stink?
Stink Robinson. Xavier Robinson is his name. Everybody calls him Stink. So
what a great nickname.
The only other stink is
greatest
Schlereth.
athlete to be nicknamed Stink since Mark Schlereth.
Yeah, I was about to
Clearly
say
the best one of this millennium. Yes.
That is awesome.
I was about to say Mark Schlereth is the only other stink I know in sports.
I think Notre Dame's offered him. Now I want him more than ever.
Most major college programs have offered him. He has started since day one. He is a junior. This is a group that has largely been together. What LN didn't have last year, a lot of were seniors in size, really just graduated 2 seniors. They found one in Brendan Miller, who as a freshman was playing on the JV until about January, just started knocking down shots at the varsity level. So now they've got, if not the typical LN size, enough size, especially against a team like a Kokomo, et cetera, to do some damage. Ben Davis will be good once they get all their pieces assembled. You know, Fishers beat them last week. Mark Zachary did not play. Ben Davis was scheduled to play 4 times before tomorrow when they play Fort Wayne for game number 5. They didn't play last Saturday because it was obviously opposite the 6A championship game. They're not playing tonight, did not want to play a conference game without their full complement of players. All of their guys will have their practices in. Mark Zachary will make his season debut tomorrow when Ben Davis takes on Wayne at 4:45 at Brownsburg High School, which can be seen for free at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Rake, it's something that Scotty Johnston, our great statistician, among other things, confirmed earlier this week, and it's a bit astonishing. We have not had a mid-major in the NCAA men's basketball tournament from the state of Indiana since Valpo in 2015. If I'm looking at these records correctly right now, we've got Indiana State at 6-1, Evansville at 6-1, Ball State and Michael Lewis, and these are all pretty, young coaches in terms of how they've been or how long they've been at these respective programs. Ball State and Michael Lewis at 5-2. Do we feel like, obviously, Indiana State and Evansville are in a loaded Missouri Valley. The MAC is a good mid-major conference as well. Do we feel like there's some potential for Purdue, and we'll see if anybody else from the state challenges for an NCAA tournament bid?
I do. I think Indiana State now, again, the Valley is not Wichita State Creighton days, but I think of the one bid leagues, it's about as good as you're going to find. And so Indiana State was predicted to finish 4th. Evansville was predicted to finish 11th. Now, that can obviously be off. Evansville lost their conference opener at Missouri State earlier this week. Indiana State crushed Illinois State when they played wherever they opened, Southern Illinois, in terms of their conference opener back on Tuesday. Indiana State, I think, is going to be really good at that level. But let's face it, for as good as I think they are, they still have to win 3 games in 3 days in Arch Madness the first weekend in March. It's just the nature of what it is. Same can be said for Ball State. I would put Purdue-Fort Wayne. Purdue-Fort Wayne has been really impressive so far. Can't place how they did in the Horizon League Open play on Wednesday. And off the top of my head, I don't know if the Dons won that one or not. But Purdue-Fort Wayne won at DePaul. Again, worst team in the Big East. Still a great win for anybody in the Horizon League. So, and that team is completely new. That was one of the oldest teams in college basketball last year. I think the average years of starting experience of their starting 5 last year was about 4.5 years in college. So they've completely changed over their team, but John Kaufman's done a pretty good job of restocking that quickly. So I would say of the mid-majors, Indiana State 1, maybe Ball State 2, Purdue-Fort Wayne 3 in terms of chances to nab an at-large berth in the NCAA tournament. An automatic qualifier in the NCAA tournament this year.
Right, great stuff. Nice run in Indy yesterday, and we'll be listening coming up Sunday for the post-game show between Colts and Titans.
You got it. What time is Mayo going in the coffee in the show today?
15 minutes from now.
The plop is in 15 minutes.
Ugh.
Okay, I'll be sure to be not listening to it at that time. Thank you.
Oh, come on, Rake. Unbelievable. Party pooper here in this holiday season. Greg Rakestraw.
Oh,
he
goodness.
Said, no discrimination on any Mayo out there. Mark, the coffee's being brewed?
It's brewing, and it's actually a higher quality because we didn't have any up here, so I had to sneak down to WIBC and steal some.
Oh,
so
nice.
We've got some Starbucks going.
Oh, wow. So we're going to ruin some good stuff.
High down there.
Yeah.
I love how we had to sneak down to level 4 and get the good stuff. I like that.
Inside radio.
I was wondering where you were.
We're our studio is moving, so I think they're slowly transitioning everything 2 floors down.
Moving within the building, to be clear.
There's no coffee up here, so I had to go downstairs.
We're not going to have the beautiful view anymore. We're going to be in a true radio cavern, right?
I've called it the psychiatric ward because it's padded walls and no windows.
Like I said, that's radio, baby.
Again, on the college basketball front last night, that was highly entertaining at Hinkle. Great atmosphere for Thad Matta's bunch. The Blue Out, they beat Texas Tech in overtime. Jamil Telford, outstanding. DJ Davis. It's a lot of transfers for Butler. Posh Alexander, a triple-double. But they've had a nice start to this season. And then tonight, Andy, it doesn't happen very often in the college basketball Big Ten season that you get Indiana and Purdue backed right up against each other in back-to-back games. 7 o'clock from Bloomington. It'll be Indiana and Maryland. Maryland is 4-3 on the year. Indiana's a slight favorite in this one. This is Jordan Geronimo, revenge game, if you will. The transfer from Bloomington. He does start for Maryland. And then obviously Xavier Johnson's health is a big question coming into this game. Michael Woodson was pretty much, if he can't play, next man up. We're still evaluating X right now. And then Purdue, their first true road game of the year, and they lost at Northwestern last season. Northwestern has just one loss on the season. Purdue favored by 7.5 in this one.
Am I wrong being cocky that I'm not worried about Purdue losing this game like they did last year? I'm not trying to put on.
Any reason in particular for that?
I just think Purdue's the best team in the country. I mean, they could have a bad night. I'm not saying that's going to be that they can't have an off night, that they're going to go and win every game.
Do you not believe in the road of the Big Ten?
I
Even
do.
Welsh Ryan Arena, the nerds will be drunk tonight.
But this will just be this is the beginning of the road, right? It's not the middle of the road where you could trip up. By the way, I'm looking at my guy Alex Bozich inside the hall. $17 seats available there in Bloomington. So if
you got to get Coach Sig on the mic at some point tonight, right?
Halftime, 100%.
Press conference at 2:30.
There's no doubt. No, he'll get the rowdy students going. Speaking of college basketball games, I meant to ask you this, and we'll get to the Colts here in just a second.
Didn't we get the Brian Kelly family at a basketball game? Wasn't that where that quote came from?
100% was, right?
You gotta love the football coaches grabbing the mic at the basketball games.
He's gonna grab the mic. He's gonna provide energy. I did see
Take one drag of the dart before he walks out to midcourt.
Is Kansas UConn this weekend? They are they not? I believe.
I thought that was tonight, maybe.
Okay, is it tonight? I need to look that up. Did you see
from Lawrence? Correct.
Yeah, it's from Lawrence. Did you happen to see that students all the way back on Monday were camping out in the arena for that game? I guess they were sleeping in their seats or they were rotating with friends.
This is allowed?
Listen. I'm stunned by it. I saw a video of the student section, they were all camping out for the game. I'm like, I know in college you do things. It's like the only time you may do it.
Right,
but I'm not sitting in a seat for 5 days for a basketball game.
I've slept in some awkward places, but I don't know if a plastic chair inside of Allen Fieldhouse for 5 straight days.
Just let them buy tickets ahead of time.
I guess
How about
Kansas,
we just do that?
Anything goes. 9 o'clock tonight from Lawrence.
Is that it? 9 o'clock tonight?
Kansas
That's a good game.
The defending national champs.
It's a good game.
Indiana slight favorite tonight, 2.5 points. And as we said, Purdue, 7.5 point underdog. Northwestern does have a 7-footer for what it's worth, but not a lot of size outside of that. Brooks Barnheiser, the Lafayette native, been very good this year. And again, Boo Buie had a big night against Purdue last season of 26 points. That matchup with Braden Smith will be a fun one to watch. All right, we are going to dump Mayo in the coffee coming up in 10 minutes. That is a preview of Colts and Titans as Will Levis will be the starter. Any other Titans-related storylines? Again, to me, Andy, you go back to that first matchup. You bullied them. You ran it 190 yards in that game. You shut down Henry. Now, the key elements of the bullying are missing, in my opinion, from that matchup. You don't have Grover Stewart. They've got Tahir Tart. They're kind of their version of Grover Stewart, if you will. Jonathan Taylor didn't have a big game that day, but obviously he won't be playing. Zach Moss had a big game. But again, if you go back to that 50-yard run that Moss ripped off, you watch the replay of that, multiple Titans defenders are occupied by Anthony Richardson's presence on the field in that game. So I do think you flip the script, 2.5 months later. I don't know if the bullying recipe is as apparent. I still think Tennessee's O-line is a question mark, but I don't know if the amount of bullying could be there.
Here's the thing with Tennessee. Let me ask you this. I think you guys would be the best to ask about this. Are the Titans, they're not as bad as Carolina, obviously. They're not as bad as the Patriots. We understand that. they're probably more in line of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is only alive because the NFC South is so bad. I mean, that's the only reason that they have a hope this year. And Tampa Bay is better, with Mike Evans. Baker's better right now than Will Levis. So Tampa Bay is better, but they're not a good team. And I can't remember, but they had lost, 3 in a row or like 6 out of
5
7?
to 6,
yeah, it was something like
yeah.
that going in to the Colts game last Sunday. If this were not the muscle memory of Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans, who had won 5 straight before the win a month and a half ago in Lucas Oil, would we be viewing this the same? In other words, if it weren't the Titans, if it were another team who was down on their luck, another team perhaps without a coach that we really respect, that had kind of owned the Colts and Mike Vrabel, and it was just some team, name any team, that was a 4-win team and that was starting a rookie quarterback who was throwing for under 200 yards a game the last 3 games, I feel like we would have more confidence on the Colts. And by the way, fans may have a lot of confidence. I might be wrong on that, but I feel like even me, I would have more confidence. It was easy for me to pick the Colts to beat the Panthers, the Patriots, and the Buccaneers last week. I feel even myself being pulled in the direction that it's a little bit more difficult to do so. And now, obviously, they've been good at home, and that's a huge stat, how good they've been in Nashville. But there is still, I feel like, the muscle memory of what the Titans have meant to the Colts and kind of what Mike Vrabel has been able to do. Does that make sense?
And I would add to it, again, the loss of Grover Stewart, in a way, Andy, I feel like you kind of played with fire of team. I mean, Tennessee was the worst rushing offense in the NFL. Or, excuse me, Tampa was the worst rushing offense in the NFL, and they gassed you for 6.5 per carry. And so now you put Derrick Henry, who has done that to you throughout his career. I mean, honestly, what they did to him in October was a very rare Colts game. I think that's why you have a bit of a question mark in this one. And then again, it's a replaceable position, but you still don't have Jonathan Taylor. And I brought this up yesterday, and I think it's worth going back to. Go back to the New England game a couple weeks ago. That game had 1 touchdown. The 1 touchdown was scored on a 4th and goal by a very impressive effort by Jonathan Taylor. If that's Zach Moss, I'm not sure if Moss scores on that play. And again, maybe it's unfair to Moss. He's obviously had a very, very nice season. But that, I think, is something you have to keep in mind. Vegas has this as a 1-point spread. Mm-hmm. I think at least my score will indicate I expect it to be close. And close games mean, do you settle for 3? Or do you convert in the red zone? That's oftentimes what it boils down to. You go back to the first matchup here at Lucas Oil, and Tennessee's driving to take the lead in the 4th quarter. And they get a 4th and 1 at what? Like your 10-yard line, maybe? And DeForest Buckner and Zaire Franklin make a great play on Derrick Henry, and he's stuffed. If that play goes the other way, Tennessee easily wins that game. So I feel like the Grover Stewart not having him in there, the Jonathan Taylor not having him in there, do one of those key 3rd or 4th down moments, do they just go the other way? And is that the difference in this game? There's plenty, I think, of reason on paper for Colts fans to have some optimism. Levis has been inconsistent. Their O-line stinks. As great as Tennessee has been at home, how about the Colts away from home? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're what, like 4-1 on the year in games away from home? So I do think there's evidence there. But again, there's a couple of key parts of how you got the win in Week 5 that are missing here on Sunday.
They need 2 interceptions on Sunday. Is that fair? Maybe an interception and a fumble. Yeah, they need to create a couple turnovers, and Levis hasn't done a lot of that. That surprises me the most.
That's a good black and white way to look at it. I'll probably go a little bit more gray area and just say, put Levis in uncomfortable moments.
Right.
Don't let them get on schedule. Don't let him have the 7-step drop and they protect it up and the deep ball gets aired out. Put him in the uncomfortable. Do what you did to Levis, what you did to Bryce Young. You made Bryce Young feel uncomfortable. What did he do? He panicked and threw 2 balls to Kenny Moore. That, I think, is something that you need to try.
You know what I think of when I think of Colts-Titans, specifically Colts-Titans last year?
We have Matt Ryan.
At Tennessee, that was the halftime report, that the Titans were winning and Mike Vrabel was pissed.
It's just so good.
They came back to Tracy Wolfson, and she said, that's what Frank Reich said.
We have Matt Ryan.
Now, did she talk to Frank Reich?
She did not Carissa Thompson.
She did not make that up that we have Matt Ryan.
That was a quote from Frank Reich. And, of course, Matt Ryan will be in the booth on Sunday. Andrew Catalan, Tiki Barber, Matt Ryan, A.J. Ross, the broadcast crew for CBS here. First time that ex-Colt quarterback
Matty
Matt
Ice.
Ryan will be broadcasting.
Can I
his
ask you
former
guys
team.
this? Will Colts fans be listening into Matt Ryan if he makes any sort of a little slight towards the Colts in a 3.5 hour broadcast?
I don't know if Matt Ryan's built up that venom and or that clout to the Colts. And knowing Matt Ryan, I think he'll be pretty
generic,
politically correct, and won't go down
probably the case
that path. We are 5 minutes away from plopping mayo into coffee again, an ode to Will Levis. We mentioned it. We did it in April, and I said, and I apologize, Andy. I don't know if they went through this during the hiring process of if you say yes, and Will Levis is starting at some point this season against the Colts, you're gonna have to do it. Here we are. We'll do that in a few. Before that, it's a busy morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, let's start your morning check down. Pacers, fourth quarter not so good, especially defensively. 142-132, your final there in South Beach. Coach Carlisle postgame on those defensive issues.
132 points is enough points. Our problems, we're at both ends, but I think when we look at it, we're going to see that they were predominantly defensive problems, and so we got to make adjustments and do better there.
45 points by the Heat in that final quarter. They averaged 110. 142, though, is what they scored last night, KB.
Such a disappointing fourth quarter. After really you had played well through the first three quarters, and they didn't have Bam Adebayo in that final quarter, and they still go off. Tyrese Halliburton had a career-high 44 and 10. Mentioned this earlier, just a wild stat from ESPN. It makes you want to celebrate and cry all at the same time. Halliburton in November, 28 points, 11 assists, 53% from the floor, 47% from three. If you boil those numbers down to 25 and 10, 50% from the floor, 40% from three, that has been done by two other players in the history of the National Basketball Association. Those two players would be Michael Jordan and LeBron James.
Which one's better? Find out next on First Take.
Oh, boy. That's a summer debate.
Dumping mayo down my jugular right now.
You say it's summer. They might be doing it today, Mark.
Maybe.
And Mark, you did mention this. Stephen Rails.
Yes.
Buying a minority stake in the Pacers up to 20% now in ownership. Stephen Rails is a DePaul grad. That would be Greencastle DePaul, 72 years old. It was funny, when we went to opening night, I saw him front row sitting next to Dan Tauris, who owns Gamebridge. And I'm like, well, that dude must be very important if he's sitting up there. And remember, when Rick Carlisle signed his extension, one of the people he thanked was Stephen Rails. And I'm thinking, I don't know much about that guy. So I started looking into him. And got to know him a little bit. He's, I think I saw on the list, he's the 373rd richest person in the world, or something along those lines.
Is that it?
Yeah, that is it.
Is that it? He can't like that number. What, up to 20%, you said? Is that what the news was last night?
So the statement from the Pacers was this, and again, Herb Simon on the statement. My good friend Stephen Rails, who has strong Hoosier ties and is a grad of DePaul University and co-founder of Danaher Corporation, if I'm saying that right, which is the owner of Indiana-based life sciences company Beckman Coulter, expressed an interest in acquiring a minority investment in the franchise. After considerable discussions, Stephen's going to become a minority owner of 20% of the franchise, pending league approval. Management of the franchise remains under Simon family control. The Simon family is as committed to Indiana today as we've been since we moved here from New York in the 1960s. So, again, I assume that the passing down to Stephen Simon in full control would happen at some point there. But yes, Stephen Rails, 20% stake in the Pacers.
Quickly, college basketball tonight, a doubleheader. Just sit down if you're a Big Ten fan. Indiana or Purdue, 7 o'clock. Maryland, Indiana, 3.5-point favorite are the Hoosiers there at home. Purdue on the road as the number one team in the country, favored 6.5, 7 points there at Northwestern. And then, of course, last night, fun game there in Hinkle. Butler winners 103-95. Thad Matta's company team winning in overtime. Good for them.
Yeah, big late surge in the second half. They got down there late, and then Texas Tech actually hit a layup kind of close to the buzzer there to force it into overtime, but then Butler responded majorly in OT to get that win over Texas Tech. All right, on the other side, we're plopping it. Mayo in coffee. We'll do that next.
Hey, it's JMV, and find a great gift and save this week. Get 20% off interior holiday decor at Miss M's Home and Garden in Bargersville. MissMsHomeandGarden.com.
You already know Prize Picks is the most fun you'll have this football season. But now you can play during basketball season too. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on the projected stats, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Visit prizepicks.com/playnow and use code PLAYNOW. That's code PLAYNOW at prizepicks.com/playnow. Must be present.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, so Mark's got the mail.
Can I see this? No, you cannot. Oh, my gosh.
Mark, that jar is massive. Mark, bring that over here. I'd love to just get a little plop right in the old Hot Joe here. All right. Again, this is in honor of Will Levis. Could be the Colts draft pick. God, it is a little bit more horrifying than I thought.
Yeah, so you admit that mayonnaise is disgusting, right?
By the way, this expires 1 month from today.
Okay,
do you think Mark is going to...
All right, great. And wait a minute, you bought this when?
Nice little plop
my God.
there. You see that spoon? Let's see if we can get the plop on the sound effects here. How good are our...
Oh, that was a thick drop right there. That was the most horrific sound known to man.
Mine's curdling pretty quick.
Cheers, gentlemen, to potentially Will Levis being the Colts quarterback.
No. You can't look at it.
The NFL draft is tomorrow night.
See you on the other side.
Get away from me. You're going to gag.
Man. I'll put some blood in your pencil. Oh, hell.
I'm not going to lie. When a few of the chunks hit your lips, boy, that is a tough scene.
Once it hits your lips, it's so good.
You got this, Jake.
I don't think I can do it.
Jake, 2 weeks from today, for your graduation, for Boo, for Mopman, for Shannon.
The longer you wait, the faster it turns. So I'd say
Here we
down
go.
the hatch. I thought you were going to puke right there on the board.
Oh, my God.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you, Mark.
Take this crap away from me.
There you go.
I would say the wilder thing is you bought a jar of mayo that size and it expires in 1 month.
No, I really, really love mayo.
Oh, goodness. All right, so that was the Wednesday before the NFL draft in
can't believe
April.
we're doing this again.
And we're doing it again. Jake's not even awake right now, probably.
Hell no, he's
God
not
bless
awake.
him at 8:36.
Why can't it be Tannehill starting? Why can't it be Malik Willis starting Sunday?
It could be anybody else.
Come on, is Billy Volek still a Titans quarterback?
So I followed Will Levis for a couple years at Kentucky, saw every snap, but I never subjected myself to this, okay? I never stooped that low. So for people that don't know or
we
don't
are
remember,
desperate in this market.
we are. Will Levis, when he was at Kentucky, especially that final year, he did it even at the SEC Media Days, KB. I remember him doing it. That Will Levis thought he was being funny and put mayo in his coffee, had his girlfriend video him and everything else. And this was something that he did. It was hijinks. It was funny. I thought he kind of let it go a little bit when he got out of college because he's like, I need a job. I need to get drafted. Regardless, you guys did what you needed to do.
Hell yeah.
Will Levis put the mayo in the coffee. You guys put the mayo in the coffee. Now we're all, including me, going to put the mayo in the coffee.
Mark, can we hear the plop one time? This was the April acoustic plop. Ooh, just sounds beautiful.
Whose plop was that? Was it your plop?
That was my
Jake's?
plop. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean that was not boosted by any means. That was just pure. Go ahead and unscrew the cap there, Andy. Again, Will Levis starting for the Titans coming up this Sunday. He was really good in his rookie debut against the Falcons about a month ago. He has, I think, pretty much just acted like a rookie since. Pretty inconsistent. And you know what? A big factor we haven't mentioned from that Week 5 matchup with Indy, DeAndre Hopkins tore up the Colts. 8 for 140 or
yes,
something
he did.
like that.
He was very good.
Hopkins has really struggled with Levis, or at least maybe really struggled too harsh. He has not put up anywhere near those numbers. I do think that is a storyline to keep an eye on Sunday, as we have seen the Colts against passing offenses that have a pulse. Some miscommunication issues, to say the least.
All right, now this was not bought off the bargain bin, Mark. I don't know if you bought it off the bargain bin last time.
It was at Sam's Club, I think.
Okay, well, this is good until July of 2024, KB. So this is not going...
I don't know if that makes me feel any better.
It shouldn't make you feel any better, but that was a hang-up with Jake. With Query was, what's going on here? Is this going to be, is this going to make me feel bad because it might, might spoil? So we'll put this in the refrigerator. Now, I was going to take this home. I don't leave this here, right? I was going to take it home. This is Duke stuff. This is good stuff.
No,
I mean, right? This is the good stuff.
I'm sure Nikki would love a little mayo.
Well, I'm not going to leave this with the animals at a sports radio station.
In her coffee. All right,
Are you ready to go?
I'm
All right.
ready.
So do we need to put the mic next to recreate another plop, or what are we doing here? All right.
You see that? See that nice circumference on the plot?
I was good until
Make sure
right
the
then.
YouTube audience, boy, just as you say that, my stomach just took a little bit
I was
of
good until you
turn.
scooped it out.
We'll see if we can get the same plop effect, and I'm going to move the laptop over a little bit. Hopefully we don't spill any. All right, here. 1, 2. Kind of a quieter plop than
here at that time
than last time. Should I plop it again? I'm going to spoon it back out and see if I get a little. Maybe if I do a little higher in the air.
Oh,
okay, I heard
there
that
it
one.
is, all over the notes.
Oh boy, and my hand. Mark, you got a napkin?
No.
Gosh, it is all over my hand.
I can go get one.
Yeah, please, thank you. I mean, this is just, it looks horrific. It's
I was
already
good until we
starting
did
to chunk up. My left hand is covered in coffee with a little bit of mayo residue on it.
What's on your notes? What note did the mayo and coffee cover up there?
I have down here Bennett Conlon, JMU Sports on my notes.
Bennett.
That was our guest earlier to talk about Curt Cignetti.
Poor
Mark's going to
Bennett.
grab me a napkin. Mark, thank you for that. It is everywhere,
Here
to
you go,
say
Mark.
the least.
Here's the mayo.
I'm ready to cheers when you guys are.
I'm ready. Let's hand it to Mark.
Now, Andy, pray for little gas. Cheers here.
Cheers to you.
Again, in honor of Will Levis, the opposing quarterback against the Colts this Sunday afternoon, here is a sip of a chunk of mayo and some Joe.
Man, it's so bad.
That's as sour as I remember it.
Oh, you know what? It's not bad when
My gag reflex is so poor.
Save that sound.
Oh, man.
It's not bad for the first second or two, and then it's bad.
Well, the worst part is looking at it.
Oh, mix it in here.
I mean, it looks like the moon is in there. Or like one of those, when you go to the nice restaurants and they bring you like the butter and it's the circle butter. Nice looking sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Full
circle
moon,
butter.
That's what it looks like right now. And then all the chunks just kind of play off it. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's horrible, man.
Yeah, it's bad.
Well,
that's
welcome
really
to the
bad.
club, Andy.
Oh, that's really bad. Yeah. Why did he do this? Why was this the thing that Will Levis decided I'm going to be quirky in this way? Out of all the things he could, he's a chiseled 6'3", 6'4" blonde quarterback. Why did he have to, who had like a smoking hot girlfriend, okay? And I'm sure he still does. Why does he have to do this?
In order to keep her, the play on the field was too inconsistent. He had to make some aggressive move off the field, and that's the epitome of that. God, that's horrible.
Oh, and the worst part is it breaks up. When it starts to break up, and then like you can't avoid it.
I'm gonna go one more sip here.
Okay, I'll do one more sip with you.
Yeah. I'll go one more here before we get back into some Colts and Titans chatter here.
Let's hope this is the last game Will Levis ever starts.
Oh, I
against
just
the
got a
Colts.
chunk of it too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That made it even worse. Yeah, it's got a chunk of it.
That's horrible. I don't think Mayo will ever look the same to the Sweeney family after that one.
Yeah, I think we took like a reprieve from Mayo after a while. I was like, I can't do it. I needed.
What did you guys do after? Did you just break down Colts or what you guys, what are they going to take Anthony Richardson or what?
All right, what do you think? Tomorrow night, Richardson or Levis? Hallelujah, it was Richardson on so many levels.
Oh,
I know I picked Richardson. I think you did too.
Yeah, I had Richardson.
I think Jake went Levis. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think Jake was on the Levis.
Do you guys feel bad for Levis when that happened, when he sat there and he had all his sisters and his girlfand all
Tennessee
all around him?
had, 10th or 11th pick, and they went Peter Skoronski, the offensive lineman out of Northwestern. You'll see him in the starting lineup on Sunday. Levis, we played that clip earlier in the week. He thought there was certainly potential the Colts would take him at 4. And, I think there was a lot of chatter, too, that Tennessee could have been a trade-up candidate for Richardson.
Oh, sure.
With a new GM.
Well, Seattle and Richardson, I know you guys had mentioned that as well. Right. Let me ask you this, and we're just having fun with this here on the fan.
My notes are ruined.
They are. Poor Bennett, was it Bennett? Yeah, Bennett Conlon. Sorry. Let me ask you this. If Will Levis would have ended up being picked, whether that be 4th overall by the Colts or somewhere else in the draft by the Colts, 2nd round, whatever it was, how many other Gasbag Media members do you think would have then done the mayo in the coffee? Because I feel like it's just this show. Whether I'm in this seat or Jake has been in this seat, this show, am I wrong, is the only one in Indianapolis that is manned up, if you will, that is womaned up, if you will, and that has plopped the mayo in the coffee.
Yeah, well, I think it honestly was because we were ranked like 21st in the mid-market rankings, so we thought the only way to move up was to get some hair on the chest.
The Barrett rankings?
Yeah, and put some mayo in the coffee. And I think we inched to 19th after that. So maybe this will get us to 17th.
Hey, listen, day by day, as Cignetti told the Indiana faithful,
now
day by day.
Now, we had Teron Davenport on yesterday for the Titans. Titans are 4-7 right now. So, I don't think they'll be in that mix, but let's say they end up, 4th overall pick.
Ooh.
Are you trying to trade up for one of the two? You trying to go Jaden Daniels? You rolling with Levis and Malik Willis?
Well, so Malik Willis, you got to be done with Malik Willis, right? You got to cut ties there. That was a bad pick. I mean, the guy's had 2 straight years where you've got him in the game. It hasn't worked. You gave him preseason reps. It hasn't worked. I think, doesn't it just come down to they have a new GM there who will be on a 2nd draft in Tennessee? Doesn't it matter if Vrabel's there? as well. Like, if you're not going to get rid of the GM and the coach again, you're not going to have a GM for 1 year.
Well, that's the awkward. We fired the GM and hired the new guy. We really like the coach. You know, I'm such a believer that you tie everything at the hip. And I guess the Colts, in a way, are kind of in a similar boat here. That's where, some of the chatter was, hey, do you fire Chris Ballard?
Right.
Well, then you get some power trippy new GM in here, and all of a sudden he's going to say, hey, Shane Steichen's not mine. And again, Shane obviously has had a really, really good first season here. But are you taking a picture of
I'm taking a picture.
mayo and the coffee?
Yeah, Instagram, throw it out there. Throw it out there on Twitter. Try to get a couple likes.
Ryan tweets, sorry, boys, had to change the station with all the mayo and the coffee business. About crashed my truck.
I don't think he left. I think he listened to that entire thing, and I think he tweeted you, and I think he came right back to us. That's what I think.
It is horrifying. Mayo is one of the uglier looking food items out there.
Oh, and I know I like it. It's one of those food items you don't want to eat by itself.
Well, no.
It accompanies.
Tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, it accompanies a turkey sandwich or something like that very well. But you're not gonna, stick a spoon in it. Listen, I don't know about Levis. I just don't know.
Chances that Quentin Nelson douses Shane Steichen in mayo in the post-game locker room on Sunday if the Colts beat the Titans.
0.
Would that be the most unlike Shane Steichen thing you'll ever see?
It would have been funny if the Colts drafted Levis. Then all of those questions would have went to Ballard and Steichen, yes? And like Jim Bob Cooter, hey, what did you think of the Mayo hijinks in the pre-draft evaluation?
I'm cringing imagining Shane Steichen answering that.
Oh, I am too. But somebody would have had to ask. I mean, you would have had to, right? Step up to the plate. Someone in the media. Ugh.
We've got a busy Friday night and really weekend here in Indy. Again, a reminder, we've got the Big Ten Championship coming up tomorrow. Shout out to the Iowa faithful for stimulating our economy with their beer drinking over the next 48 hours. I almost just burped, which could have led to something else, if I'm going to be totally honest. Iowa, Michigan tomorrow night inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. That is a 22.5-point favorite. Oh boy, I might have to hit up the bathroom.
Are the Iowa faithful here? I can take it to break if you need me to.
Hell yeah,
you got the
Iowa's
garbage right. You got the garbage right there. Are you going to be able to eat your banana too? By the way.
Oh, I totally forgot about
because that doesn't sound good.
Add some mayo to the banana.
Stop.
Do the peel. Then Will Levis eat the peel too?
Yeah, I think you did that. You got to draw the line somewhere.
That was his first hijink, Mark.
I don't think my intestines can handle that.
I'm going to
barely handle the mayo and the coffee.
Yeah, he did the peel first, and that, I got a little bit of run on that, but not as much as this entire mayo coffee thing.
Again, it's a loaded night basketball-wise here in the state. The back-to-back games, it'll be in Bloomington, Indiana, and Maryland. I would assume Curt Cignetti will be taking the mic down there in front of the Hoosier faithful, and then Purdue at Northwestern, the first true road game of the year for the Boilermakers in that. We'll continue to preview it, recap that ugly fourth quarter last night in South Beach, and look ahead to Colts and Titans with Matt Taylor coming up in about 10 minutes. I'm off to the bathroom. Hellsburg Diamonds.
wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, so check out the YouTube. Check out the podcast, 1075thefan.com. You miss anything on the show, including the mayo going in the coffee. Thank you to Will Levis for that.
A little bit of it almost just
are you okay?
Exited my body there during
Well,
the
I was
break.
wondering, so I went out and dumped mine out. Mark, you'll like this. And
I'm going to save one more sip for Matt Taylor in the 9 o'clock hour.
Okay, you went to the bathroom. I went and dumped mine out. And while all of that was going on, like have a Merry Christmas was playing.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. Was playing in the background. Before we do some Colts NFL stuff, again, Matt Taylor joins us here in about 6 minutes. Do you think Curt Cignetti looks like Tom Crean? KB,
People have said that to me.
Do you think so? I'm showing you a picture. I'll show the YouTube audience. Go to Twitter, X.
Now, is he drinking liftoff like Crean used to on the sidelines?
I have no idea. I don't think he probably has the demeanor of Tom Crean on the sidelines.
I do, and again, I'm judging him off of a college game day appearance with Pat McAfee. There's a high level of energy there. I mean, you could feel his presence. There's certainly an energy there. Granted, couldn't you feel a presence of Tom Allen, I guess? I don't know. Maybe it's in a different way. But, yeah, Curt Cignetti, again, going to join JMV coming up at 5:30 today. Press conference at 2:30, the opening one for him. And we'll hopefully have him on next week. Do you find it, just quickly on college basketball front for tonight, you feel more confident about Purdue than Indiana tonight? Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah, I would say, but just because I'm dealing with the better team. I'm dealing with Purdue, and I know,
isn't it kind of odd to say that about, the road in conference? You always hear about, the Big Ten on the road. Oh my gosh, that's, it's this vaunted place. Obviously, Purdue's better than Indiana, but Andy, Maryland stinks, right? They're 4-3.
Yeah, I know, but it's still only a 3.5 point game.
Right. It's just kind of wild to sit here and say that you feel much more confident about, the road team tonight, whereas the home team in conference is playing a team that's 4-3 on the year.
So the ESPN predictor has Purdue's chance of beating Northwestern at 65%. Indiana's chance in the matchup predictor of beating Maryland at home, 64% chance. I mean, so it tells you it's pretty close. I don't know. I guess I'm bullish on this Purdue team. It doesn't mean they can't have a bad night, but I don't know. I mean, learn your lesson from last year type of thing. And they beat 3 teams in the top 10, 11. And then on top of it, they played Texas Southern. When was that? Was that Monday or Tuesday? Going back earlier in the week. Was it Monday or Tuesday? I can't remember. Tuesday, whenever it was. So it's not like this is a back-to-back. They played Thursday. They got to play again on Saturday. Tonight. It's not a day in between. They've got a chance to get from that Texas Southern game. I don't know. I guess I just believe in Purdue going on the road and beating Northwestern. I think they win, and I think they cover tonight. I do. I'd bet both of them. I may bet both of them. How about that?
Any gut feel, Colts-Titans? Should we give those picks out coming up a little bit later?
Yeah, now I'm feeling like your gut feeling is you might go with the Titans. I mean, that's kind of how I feel you're going to go.
I've gone Colts like 4 or 5 straight games.
I went Colts and almost nailed the entire score last week. I'm probably leaning a 23-20-ish Colts right now is the way I'm leaning. The reasons, the pass rush, making Will Levis uncomfortable and turning them over. It scares me. Derrick Henry, what is he going to be able to do? I will say, they were not good in beating Carolina, were the Tennessee Titans.
17-10,
yeah,
right?
It was 17-10. And in the 5 games that Levis has been the quarterback, Derrick Henry is about, 60? I gave the stat out, 63 yards a game, 3.8 per carry, 2 touchdowns in 5 games. So it's not like he's been dominant. This is another bad team in the list of bad teams that the Colts have played and will play. And if you want to stick around, you just got to win a game like this.
If you have to. Tiering the NFL teams.
Okay, tiering. Let's go.
Carolina and New England would be on what? Tier 5? Would you call Tennessee and Tampa on Tier 4?
Probably. Yeah, probably. I would.
Where are the Colts hovering around 3, 2?
I mean, they're upper level 3, lower level 2, probably. Don't you think? I mean, the record is the record when you get down to it.
Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, joins us next.
Rhino.
KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, 9 o'clock hour, hanging out with you in the DriveHubler.com studios. Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, Mark Dykton. It is the wake-up call. We put the mayo in the coffee. I'm sure, KB, you want to take another swig of that, so I'm going to let you and Matt Taylor deal with that here in short order. Reminder, you miss any of the show here, any of our shows here on The Fan, check it out, 1075thefan.com. Download the app as well. Take us wherever you want to take us. Stream us, 1075thefan.com as well. All right, let's get him going here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Matt Taylor, the voice of the Indianapolis Colts, joins us here, his normal 9 a.m. Friday slot. Matt, good morning, sir. How are you?
What's going on, fellas? Happy Friday to you.
Well, happy Friday to you. Do you want to do this? I don't know if you heard, we did the mayo 30 minutes ago in the coffee in honor of one William Levis. So, KB, take it away. Do you want to take one more swig, or are you going to punt?
I would hope that Matt Taylor and Rick Venturi will do the same.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
1 o'clock Sunday.
Sure.
Yeah, I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a showing of solidarity, with the morning goobers. That's exactly what we're going to do here. Yeah.
What did you call us?
Tops of our list.
What did you call us? Now, I will say this about Sunday, and then, we're kind of nerding out, and you can fill us in. From what I recall, you've got one of the. I would say that Nashville and that stadium is one of the best views that you have all year, right?
It's okay. It's okay.
Just okay.
My favorite booth is Cincinnati. Cincinnati is pristine because it's a good location, not too high, not too low. It's wide.
Isn't Foxborough good?
Foxborough is great. Tennessee's okay. It's a little bit low, and I think they've moved us the last couple of years. We used to be closer to the 50-yard line. Now we're at about like the 25 on whatever end is closest to the river there. I'm not sure in terms of directions, but it's okay. Listen, I mean, the play-by-play griping about the booth and location, that's a tale of oldest time.
You're too close to the field.
If you want to be closer to the 50, drink a little mayo and coffee, and you'll be right back there.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
All right, here we go.
I'm going to have one more sip. You guys can take it and move on to the, week 13.
Hang on. Let's listen in. Oh.
It sounded disgusting.
That sounded bad. Go ahead, Matt.
It's when that chunk hits the lips.
I mean, I know all about the Will Levis infamous mayo and coffee, but my question is, how does one figure out that's a good combination? Like, how do you just open up the fridge one day and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put mayonnaise in my coffee.
I preach. I don't know what you did at Franklin in college. I'm sure you did some stupid things in your time there. You probably ate some things that you might have had some morning regret of, but I could not agree more. With his girlfriend. This is not like, stupid human tricks or, Friday of Little Five. I mean, what are we doing here?
You're right. You're right. It's one thing like to be dared at 3 o'clock in the morning,
sure,
buddy, after having some dead soldiers in the corner, and then you're like, all right, I'll just, I'll be stupid. I'll be the guy that puts mayonnaise in my coffee. But then to like it and to prefer it, it's just baffling.
Yeah, he did like the SEC media day, so he's like stone cold sober, at like noon in Birmingham, wherever they do the SEC media days. So, well, some fun there. We will, I'm sure, go to the YouTube if you want to watch any of that. I guess let's start with Levis. This pass rush for the Colts, 11 sacks in the last couple games, but really just dialing up the pressure. And also some of these guys just flat out getting home. They finished the game last weekend. To me, getting to Levis, making him uncomfortable. And then on top of it, Matt, he only has 2 interceptions in 5 games at Kentucky. He was kind of a turnover machine, getting him to turn the ball over as well. That seems like the recipe in beating the Tennessee Titans. What do you make of that defensive line versus Will Levis on Sunday?
Yeah, that's been the part of this 3-game winning streak for me that's most encouraging. You take a lot of optimism going forward in the final 6 games of the season, considering the way the Colts are winning up front with their pass rush. It's not just DeForest Buckner anymore, right? It's not Buckner beating a double team and still, putting pressure up the middle, getting into the face of a quarterback up the middle of the pocket. It's now guys, to your point, Andy, winning on the outside and winning their one-on-one matchups. I mean, Dio Adangbo's got 6.5 sacks now in the season with 4.5 in the last couple of games. You look at Kwity Paye, his next sack, that'll represent a career high for him over 6 sacks for the year. Samson Ebukam has 6 sacks. So, it's a lot of diversity right now. It's a lot of guys winning their one-on-one matchups. And the good thing for Gus Bradley is they're getting home without having to blitz a lot, which is kind of the hallmark of his defense, the way that he principally wants to play. He doesn't like to blitz a lot. So the front four organically winning and providing the pass rush is really kind of music to his ears. And now that being said, to your point, Will Levis, he's a rookie, and the sample size is very small. I mean, this upcoming game on Sunday is going to be his 6th game. But he has shown that when he's not blitzed, like any quarterback, right, when he's got time and he's protected and he can read and diagnose and use that accuracy, he's pretty good. He's got near 100%, or I should say 100 passer rating when he's not blitzed, which, again, is pretty darn good with the small sample size. So might this be, a game where a couple weeks ago the Colts, when they played another rookie quarterback and Bryce Young, they heated him up pretty good, and the Colts had 5 sacks in that game. They had 3 turnovers, 2 pick sixes from Kenny Moore. Might they go back to that game plan and that ideology, to get after a rookie quarterback, make him feel uncomfortable, give the ball up a couple of times, and send some extra people outside of that front four that is winning up front? Because Levis is 2-0 at home. He's got 4 touchdowns, no picks, and his passer rating at home is 110. And he, just like the rest of their team, completely different at home this year compared to on the road. So that's going to be interesting to me is how aggressive the Colts are in terms of sending extra people at the rookie quarterback, knowing their pass rush right now is playing its best football of the season.
He is Matt Taylor. He's too soft to put mayo in his coffee, and he is with us here on the Payless Liquors.
Guilty. Raise my hand, guilty.
Hotline. You got an analogy for us? I've loved your Friday analogies that you've shared with us about Colts games this season. I mean this in all seriousness. I think they've been outstanding. You got anything for us here as we get I guess this is the second rematch of the year for the Colts? Yeah, I mean, maybe another bad analogy is, you started the first semester really good. Remember, your first semester in high school, you come out strong, right? You get a couple A's, some B's, and you got a solid GPA. You're feeling good right now, and that's where the Colts are at. They're feeling good going into the home stretch. They've raised that GP up to a respectable, 3.5, between 3.5 and 4.0. They're in the mix, to be on the honor roll, and that's where the Colts are at right now in the mix of the AFC playoff pecking order. But you got to continue to bring it because there's a semester left, and this semester is more intense than the first semester. You got 6 games left. There's a bunch of teams right now, right? You got 10 AFC teams entering Sunday with at least 6 wins. The division winners right now are pretty solidified, but that wild card race is somewhat of a mess right now. You got 6 games to go. You got about 6 teams that are jockeying for 3 AFC wildcard spots. The Colts are squarely in that mix. So there's my bad analogy, right? You got to back up the first semester with a solid and even better second semester. Mm-hmm. And I love the rematch, quality about this game too, because even though Tennessee is 4-7, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs this year, this team and this rivalry still exists, and Tennessee still, quite frankly, does not like the Colts. I mean, I saw a quote the other day from Arden Key, one of their up-and-coming pass rushers that they're down in Tennessee. I love this quote, and I wrote it down. He said, I think this is probably to a reporter in the locker room. He said, quote, "Every team has that one loss, that one blank whooping that goes above and beyond during the season." He said, that game, the first time we played the Colts, that was the game for us. And so I think, even though it was a kind of a close game on the scoreboard, right, the Colts won 23-16, it really wasn't that close in terms of the feel and just the way the Colts dominated that game, especially up front on offense. The offensive line pushed them around. Zach Moss ran for a career-high 165 yards in that game. I mean, Moss in that game, I went back and did the math on it. He had 11 runs in that game with at least 5 yards. And this is a defense that prides themselves, or at least did pride themselves, on being able to stop the run and control the line of scrimmage. They've kind of fallen off in that regard. So I think Tennessee playing at home, trying to split the season series with the Colts and get some revenge on them, knowing they're in the thick of a playoff chase, the Colts that is, they would love to play spoiler and kind of ruin
the trajectory that the Colts are on right now, considering what happened to the Titans 8 weeks ago in Week 5.
I guess to kind of continue that, first semester analogy, in a way I look back at the first meeting, Matt, and think, okay, theoretically you're taking a very similar test, whatever, geometry, and this is another geometry test, but I feel like the questions are much different because of how much has changed personnel-wise from that first matchup. The quarterbacks are different. Grover Stewart's not in the lineup. Bernard Ryman is in the lineup. You don't have a Jonathan Taylor. Tahir Tart is a key piece for Tennessee's run defense, and you ran all over him back in Week 5. So I feel like I don't know if I felt this way when the rematch happened against Jacksonville. Maybe I did a little bit. But I feel like this game, this rematch, and part of it's, I guess it was 2 months ago, that a lot has changed, though, from what happened in that Colts win back at Lucas Oil Stadium to what is available to both teams coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, and to take the analogy, the cheesy analogy a step further, the Colts they're a student that studies, that's really studious, that takes the academics seriously, but they've been throwing a lot of curveballs, right? They were throwing a pop quiz at them that they didn't study for, that they weren't ready for, and they bombed it. And that's the adversity the Colts have faced this year with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in and out of the lineup, kind of starting and stopping his season. Grover Stewart. So to your point, this is going to be a completely different game. It's got a different feel about it going into this one compared to early October. Gardner Minshew's going to start. Zach Moss is going to be the bell cow running back for the Colts on Sunday. That's not completely different from Week 5, but you're not going to have Jonathan Taylor. And the defense, like I said, from Tennessee, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. And schematically, they're going to play. They just are. They're going to play completely different in this game. And in Week 5, they kind of went to their base defense, that over front, where they have that little natural bubble. Not to get too overly schematic, but they've got that natural bubble between the defensive tackle and the nose tackle. They're not going to do that. They're going to go back to what the Colts have historically had trouble with the last couple of years, whatever you want to call it, the double sink, the diamond front. Rick Venturi calls it the bear front. The Colts have had a hard time racking up big games on the ground when they face that type of front. Tennessee's smart. That's what they're going to do. There's no doubt about it. They're going to play a lot more physical, or try to, in this game on Sunday, based on the quotes you're getting from their locker room. So this has a really important feel about it because of the swing nature of this game. If you follow the playoff odds, the Colts go up from like a 42% chance of making the playoffs as of right now. It's like almost a 60% chance of making the postseason if they can get this win 4 in a row, and continue to stack wins, but AFC wins that'll help the Colts down the stretch in terms of tiebreakers that they might have on other teams.
Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, with us here. Payless Liquors Hotline, Football Friday here on The Fan. I want to, okay, so I was going to ask you about JT, and then you talked about that bear front, and that's also something that I had written down. You look at the last 3 games, 70 yards rushing for the Colts, 78, and then against Tampa Bay, 155. When you're talking with Coach up there in the booth, what were they doing last week to get the run going when even in these wins the last few weeks, they had not been running the football at a high clip?
Yeah, it's diversity. It's not just the outside zones. It's not just the inside gap runs. They're pulling guards and they're whamming people with tight ends coming across the formation and kicking out defensive tackles and defensive ends. So that's to me the most encouraging part about this offense under Shane Steichen is just the diversity. It's the innovation that you see on a week-to-week basis. And so again, I don't expect the Colts to flirt with 200 yards rushing in this game like they did back in Week 5, but you got to be able to sustain drives and stay on the field, because that's exactly what Tennessee wants to do. They want to win this game ugly and nasty and early December outside football, right? They want to win the game similarly to how the Patriots wanted to win a couple weeks ago in Germany. Low scoring, kind of 2 to 3 scores, right? Whether it's 13-7 or 10-6. They want to shorten the game with long, sustained drives, and that's where the Colts have to kind of rebuttal that with, some physicality of their own and some time of possession of their own, because what you can't do is be susceptible to not being able to stop Derrick Henry and then not move the ball on your own on offense.
Last one for me, Matt. You know, I give you guys credit, and we played the sound on Monday of Lara Overton having the report there on you guys' broadcast of the right hand being dealt with Jonathan Taylor.
Un-Carissa Thompson-like Lara Overton in that moment.
Exactly.
Right.
And so, because a lot of times you're wondering, okay, why the entire second quarter, you know, Taylor's been so good, why is he not in? Not that Moss isn't a good player, but Jonathan Taylor had kind of got it going, and so you guys gave some great insight there. When you knew that, and maybe not everyone in the stadium or people watching on TV, could you or Coach notice any difference in the second half with Jonathan Taylor? And then, obviously, how big of a loss is that for the next couple weeks?
Well, I didn't notice anything, to be honest with you. And, you know, to be fair, obviously there's a lot going on. You know, it's a game of chess during the game with your brain and your calls and incorporating all that you have to balance throughout the course of the game. So I really didn't think anything of it in terms of it being a major injury at the time, just because Jonathan never left the game, right? He didn't leave the game early. He didn't go back to the locker room and then not come back. So really didn't think anything of it. And quite frankly, when he ran in the second half, he ran hard. And, you know, there wasn't any issues, obviously, with ball security and stuff like that. So, you know, that was a surprise to me, like it was a lot of people when I got the news of that on, you know, early Tuesday morning about the injury and having to have surgery and where we're at right now with that. But, you know, to be honest with you, the Colts have been so fortunate to have Zach Moss that I'm not really concerned about the running game. Now, don't get me wrong. Would you like to have Jonathan Taylor on your team getting 20 carries a game? Yes, absolutely. I mean, don't be ridiculous, but because Jonathan Taylor's a top 5 running back in the NFL. But guess what? Zach Moss is a top 15 running back in the NFL. I mean, he's been so steady for this team, and you know, him taking on this opportunity to be the main guy within the running game is not foreign to him. He's already done it twice with the Colts since being traded for in the middle of last year. Right, the last 4 or 5 games last year, he rushed for over 300 yards, and then from weeks 2 to 6 this year, in that span, he led the NFL in rushing. He led the NFL in terms of carries per game, averaging about 19. And, you know, you go back to him being in college at Utah. He was a 3-year starter and the bell cow running back for a really good, you know, youth team. So this is not foreign to him. He's going to be ready. And I still think the Colts are going to be productive in the running game the last 6 games or for the last, you know, handful of games upcoming for Jonathan Taylor to come back. We'll see about that in terms of the timeline. But, no, I don't think you're going to see any drop-off from Taylor to Moss because maybe Moss doesn't have the burst that Taylor does and the ability to rip off, you know, 70-yard runs, but he's still ripping off runs over 10, you know, getting out of tackles. He's elusive. He's got that great spin move. I think Shane Steichen called it his nimble running ability. So there's really not a whole lot of drop-off between Taylor and Moss. That's why when Taylor went out of the lineup last week, there was no panic for that short period of time when he was dealing with the hand or getting it looked at because you knew you had Zach Moss that's still going to grind out, you know, over 4 yards per carry for the game. I mean, Moss is averaging he's got more yards per carry this year than Jonathan Taylor does. So he's a really good back, and I just don't think the Colts are going to sense a significant loss in their running game with number 21 back there.
You're going to hear his voice 1 o'clock on Sunday. Our coverage begins at 10 a.m. as the Colts take on the Tennessee Titans here in what, and I guess you insert this statement for every game the rest of the way, and what is a big one coming up in Nashville. Matt Taylor, as always, enjoyed it. Enjoy Nashville, and we will talk to you next Friday, man. I
appreciate you, boys. Keep your head above water with this rain going on here and have a good weekend, all right?
Yeah, it's an ugly one out there. You too, man. See ya. That's Matt Taylor.
It's what the Iowa fans deserve. They love this. Iowa fans, let's play the game outside.
Open the roof.
Yes.
Let's go. Open the roof.
Mark, I sent you some sound after the break. I want to listen to it just to tease this. I think Harbaugh may have slighted Iowa pretty big going into this game.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more.
And me and Mark love Jim Harbaugh, obviously.
Oh, next Bears head coach.
I mean, we love the guy. He's you know,
cheaters always win.
When you think of greatness, that's what you think of.
Think of integrity. You think of Coach Harbaugh. Certainly,
it's a big one. I will say.
He's stopping here at what's the clothing store across from Buca di Beppo right here?
TJ Maxx.
TJ Maxx for some khakis. Does he need an extra pair of khakis here?
Where do you get some khakis downtown Indianapolis? I will say, I was listening to Jake yesterday, and I meant to text him this. Jake Query was talking so well of Nashville. Like, he loves Nashville. And I got thinking, I think I disagree with Jake more than I've ever disagreed with him on anything. Is his
really?
love,
You're an anti-Nashviller?
I've been there, done that.
Much for you?
I was there before it was cool.
There's different speeds of Nashville, to be fair. Broadway goes a little bit Indy 500 like. The other ones, you can dial it back a little bit. Grand Ole Opry speed, maybe, if you would like to.
Mark, you were just there, right?
Yeah.
Grand Ole Opry a couple weeks ago. By the way, Mark's leaving us next week. He's going to be in Disney again.
Yeah.
Second time in like 2.5 months.
Well, he's in like the Mickey Suite or something.
This was a vacation that got postponed because my parents' accident last year, so it was supposed to happen a while ago, but now they're back on their feet and fully healthy, getting to go to Disney with the granddaughters for the first time, so... That's what we're doing.
That's nice.
Use up the vacay days before the end of the year. Jeremiah, I laughed at this one. I believe Coach Harbaugh's shopping at Leon's Tailoring. I could actually see Jim there for that. We've fallen into this trap a lot this year, Andy, and understandably. Colts play at 1 o'clock every Sunday. Now, again, the announcement yesterday, for those that missed it, the next home game for the Colts. So they're on the road in Nashville this weekend, 1 o'clock. They're on the road in Cincinnati next Sunday at 1 o'clock. They will then be on a short week on December 16th. The Colts will host the Steelers. It's the lone home game in the month of December. That will be a 4:30 kickoff on NFL Network. I believe CBS 4 is picking it up here locally. But on that Saturday, Andy.
Oh, it's loaded.
We will have IU and Kansas at 12:30 inside of Assembly Hall. We will have Colts and Steelers at 4:30 at Lucas Oil Stadium. We will have number 1 Purdue versus number 2 Arizona also at 4:30 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I guess we want to throw Ball State, Indiana State leading into the Purdue game over at Gainbridge. And you've got the Pacers in Minnesota that night. So that is one of the wilder, crazier sports days you're going to see. I am selfishly a little bummed for Purdue fans that 1 versus 2 overlaps with Colts Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I am a little bit, not as much as you. It is too bad they don't get the standalone. I will say that's one of those days I'd love to own a parking lot downtown Indianapolis.
Oh my gosh,
Boy,
you imagine
jacking up those parking prices, aren't they?
Those prices.
Holy cow!
And boy, if I had to guess, there's gonna be a good amount of terrible towels inside of Lucas Oil.
There always is. You think?
There always is for that one. Matt Taylor mentioned this. Again, I got a story up on 1075thefan.com if you want more of an in-depth look at playoff standings and chances and odds, etc. With a Colts win, and obviously this will depend on other results here the rest of the year, a 55% chance if the Colts win to make the playoffs, a 27% chance if they lose.
All these games, I feel like, and you mentioned it at the end of the interview, I feel like it's corny analysis saying it's such a big game. But all these games, I mean, this is what the Colts have done thus far has got them to the point to where we entered December talking about these games in the very same manner, right? How big these games are. This is what you want. It's kind of generic analysis, but it is what it is. I mean, if you want to make the playoffs, even though it's a road game against a team that hates you, you go on the road and you beat a team with a rookie quarterback and a team that has nothing to play for other than they don't like you. Well, that's fine that they don't like you. They also aren't a good football team, right? I mean, they're not a good team. They're a 4-win team.
Thank you to Greg for this. For some reason, I thought December only had 30 days. That Raiders game is December 31st, so that will be New Year's Eve. And I always feel like they play the Raiders like the second to last game of the season. The Raiders.
That's when we did the shrimp cocktail eating contest.
That is, yeah. So that was, that started the downfall, right? That was Colts beat the Raiders and they get in, and they lost to Rich Bisaccia in the interim, and then lost in Jacksonville the next week.
Jake faked COVID, so he didn't have to do it, so I had to sub in.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, so help me here. You guys did a shrimp eating contest?
Which I believe Joey Chestnut's doing one tomorrow somewhere downtown for those looking to see one of the greatest athletes of all time compete.
Jaws.
Yeah, Mark and I did this before the Colts-Raiders game. This had been the 2021 season, and Mark was victorious. I brought milk. I was told by Joey that is a good mechanism to kind of offset some of the tang from the St. Elmo shrimp cocktail eating sauce. And Mark was a very deserved champion. Mark, you still have the belt?
I have the championship belt.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I saw that belt, and I was like, I'm not losing this thing.
But Jake faked COVID to get out of doing it.
Such an in thing to do.
Well, back then, yeah.
Could have cleared him up a little bit, Could have cleared that snot up
was.
just a little bit.
All right, pop quiz in a few. 317-239-1070 for that. Let's lead off with that ugly fourth quarter last night.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, like KB mentioned, 45 points allowed by the Pacers in the fourth quarter. Losers to the Heat in South Beach, 142-132. Mr. Do Everything, Tyrese Halliburton post-game on the loss.
It's frustrating right now. I think we're just in a frustrating place in the season right now. But we got to figure it out. We got to come together. It's a time where, you can split or come together and figure it out. And, I think we'll do the latter. I believe in this group and, some defensive lapses. Let them get a run going there and just not getting good shots offensively. But, yeah, we can be better for sure.
Defense would help.
Okay, can I ask you guys something? Mark, I think you can do this on Adobe. Near the end, I have heard this with Halliburton sound this year.
His voice changes.
I
know. I have heard that as well. I know. I'm
Give
always
me the
like
last
caught
5
off.
seconds of it.
I'm always caught off guard by it.
I think we'll do the latter. I believe in this group and, some defensive lapses. Let them get a run going there and just not getting good shots offensively.
I know. I'm always thrown off by it.
I thought at first there was an issue with the recording.
Yeah.
But then I went back and watched, organically, his press conferences, and it's like he has a frog in his throat, and his voice changes.
I know. I feel like I'm listening to Tone Loc, Mark, a little bit there.
This is not a slight at Tyrese Halliburton, but it reminds me of, remember Steve Urkel will become Stefan?
Stefan.
The machine?
Stefan
his voice
Urkel.
changes. Hello, baby.
What Halliburton said there, that's kind of what I tweeted out last night after the game of obviously beyond disappointing fourth quarter. No Bam Adebayo for Miami, and you let that one get away. Give up, 40? Was it 45?
45 in the fourth quarter.
I mean, that is embarrassing, especially a Miami team that's not some potent offensive team. One home game, Andy, between now and December 18th, and that one home game is against the best team in the league in the Boston Celtics Monday night in the quarterfinal of the in-season tournament. We are going to learn a whole lot about this team. It is a look-in-the-mirror moment without question. Obviously, we think we know. They're great offensively. Halliburton should be an MVP candidate, and they can't guard you or me. That, if you just want to boil it down, that's probably what we've learned about the Pacers through the first month plus of this season. But, man, are we going to learn a lot.
It is worrisome. I mean, we could walk in here Tuesday, and they could be under 500.
Gosh, it's been a while.
I mean,
Has that happened all year?
We could look in here. They could be 9-10 on the season. Absolutely could happen. Quickly, college basketball, Indiana and Purdue both in action tonight. Indiana hosting Maryland there in the Big Ten, favored by about 3.5 there in Bloomington. Purdue on the road, favored by about 6.5 at Northwestern. I've been bold that Purdue's going to win and cover, so I'm sure if they lose and don't cover, I'm going to be crushed by Purdue fans. That's fine. And then last night, 103-95, Butler winners over Texas Tech in an overtime game, in a fun game there in Hinkle.
High-scoring game. Again, a nice start to this second season for Thad Mott. A couple notes on Indiana and Purdue for tonight. We'll see about Xavier Johnson. Sounds definitely questionable to play in this one for Indiana. And then for Purdue, you'll remember last year they lost at Northwestern. Zach Edey was Zach Edey, but Purdue got no help for Edey in that one. Boo Buie, who is back for Northwestern, one of the better guards in the Big Ten, 26 points in that one. That matchup with Braden Smith will be a fun one to watch.
Mackenzie Holmes and the IU women also got a solid win against Maine last night, too.
67-59 for Terry Morin's bunch there, 22-7 for Mackenzie Holmes on the road. Speaking of last night, it was a wild Thursday night football game. You had no punts in that game. Seahawks and Cowboys, 41-35. Cowboys win that one. They score the final 14 points of the game. Only the fifth time in NFL history that neither team has punted in a game.
I don't have the patience to jack with you today.
By the way, CeeDee Lamb, 4 straight games with a touchdown. Prescott, 299 and 3 touchdowns. Geno Smith, 334 and 3 touchdowns.
It's your damn act.
The over-under was like 48-49. Dallas had 41 by themselves.
14 straight home wins for the Cowboys. They will host the Eagles coming up next week. And then again, getting you set for college football on our airwaves tonight. It is a great one and a big one. That is Oregon and Washington. It's pretty much, right? Winner gets in to the playoff here. Washington beat Oregon earlier this year, but Oregon is a 10-point favorite. Am I missing something? Did Michael Penix not make the trip to Vegas?
I guess Washington not playing as good a football as Oregon. I don't know. Can you beat a team twice? I mean, Washington struggled with Washington State, needed a game-winning field goal. I'm reaching
points?
Here. I know. It's a lot of points. And, the Pac-12 winner here is going to be in. With all the weeping and gnashing of teeth with that conference splitting up, they're going to be in. By the way, just a note, it's thought of Florida State only favored by 1.5 against Louisville now. Florida State might be on their third-string quarterback in that game. I believe the committee wants Florida State to flat-out lose that game so they don't have to put them in the college football playoff, and they can put a second SEC team in or they can put Texas in, one or the other. I firmly believe that.
Again, with championship weekend getting you set before one of my favorite games of the year, and that is Army and Navy coming up next Saturday from Gillette Stadium. All right, on the other side, it is time for the pop quiz. We've had some very nice efforts on the pop quiz. I don't know if that's indicative of the teacher this week and the softness to the pop quizzes or what. I tend to look at this one and think, oh boy. Good luck. 317-239-1070. Freebie Friday for the pop quiz.
Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, Freebie Friday here on the Pop Quiz. Reminder, in our final segment, we'll give you our picks on what is going to happen, or if we're wrong, what's not going to happen in Tennessee coming up on Sunday. You ready to go? I've looked at this. I don't think it's too bad. I mean, the last question's always a haymaker, but that's what Scotty does, you know?
I think the last one's just stupid. That's just me. And we will, it is a Freebie Friday, so Jiffy Lube Oil Change going to our contestant today, Mark Dykton. Let's go with number 4.
Bruce.
How are you doing?
Hey, Bruce. How are you?
How are you doing? Good.
Bruce, are you a Bruce Springsteen, Bruce Bowen fan, Bruce Jenner?
Not a Bruce Jenner fan.
Okay, well, cross that one off the list.
You got up in the air on Bruce, and you thought, who's a Bruce? You
thought about a third one, and I said it out loud and thought, I don't know if that one's going to land.
Bruce Smith, how about that? Bruce Matthews.
Yes. Bruce Smith was pretty tough, and Earl Bruce was a good coach for Iowa.
Sure. Bruce Smith could kick some, you-know-what there. Bruce, you've got a great voice. Have you ever used that professionally?
No, I would have loved to. I would have loved to do what you're doing and have been a sportscaster.
Gosh, he's got a hell of a voice, doesn't he?
You really do. Do some voiceover work. Cut some commercials for the fan or something. I like that.
Call me anytime. I'd love to do it.
I love that. Bruce, what part of town you live on?
I'm up in Carmel.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, east or west side? I grew up on the east side.
West side, 136 and Ditch.
Okay, I was over on 136.
So you guys rivals then? One's east side, one's west side? Or
Trojans versus Cougars, Clay Junior High, and the Carmel Cougars, I think it was. Which Carmel Cougars, I guess, be taken in a lot of ways with that.
Yeah, now you got Guerin High School over there.
Now you got Guerin over there. Yeah, is Carmel ever going to build a second public high school?
No, I think some of the forefathers didn't want to dilute the sports, teams, I think. And
the 36 straight girls swimming state titles, they don't want to jeopardize that anymore?
Is that unreal? That's like a national record.
Yeah, it is absolutely unreal. It is kind of crazy to me not to go down a path here. Like, their football program hasn't been better here in recent years, but I guess Westfield and some of the Fisher schools nonetheless. All right, Andy Sweeney, you want to throw number 1 at Bruce?
All right, Bruce, let's go. Let's get a winner here. On this Friday, the Colts travel to Nashville on Sunday to face the Tennessee Titans. Who leads the all-time series?
I would have to say Nashville.
You sure?
No. I guess, early when they went to the playoffs, early 2000s, but I think Colts overall.
Yeah,
Andrew Luck never lost to the Titans as well, along with Peyton's, obviously, his dominance there. Okay, number 2 here, Bruce. The Pistons dropped a franchise record 16th straight game last night, falling to the Knicks at MSG. Who holds the record for the longest losing streak in NBA history? Is it the Grizzlies, the Cavaliers, the 76ers, or the Bobcats?
I think it's the Cavaliers.
What was the phrase? Was this the trust the process? Trust the process?
Oh.
Who was trust the process? You remember, Bruce?
Give me those choices again, please.
Yeah, Bruce, one more time here. It's the Grizzlies, Cavaliers, 76ers, and Bobcats.
Let's go with the Bobcats.
By the way, the Bobcats, what a terrible name for an NBA team. I'm sorry. It is a terrible name. All right, question number 3, Bruce.
Former Pacer Primoz Brezic on the Bobcats, maybe, Scotty, in the expansion draft.
What a name there. The Pistons went 0 for November, becoming just the 13th team in NBA history, Bruce, to go winless for an entire calendar month. Name the last team to go winless in a full month of play. Was it the Spurs, the Sixers, the Cavs, the Warriors? Again, trust the process here, Bruce.
Oh. Yeah, but I think I missed that the last time.
I think you did.
Yeah.
I don't know another hint to give you on this. I got to apologize.
Okay, it was Spurs, Cavaliers. What were the other two choices?
Spurs, Sixers, Cavs, Warriors.
go with the Sixers.
Bruce, you ever been to Dooley O'Toole's in downtown Carmel?
That's
Just
the
south
one
of downtown.
restaurant I haven't been to. I've been to Muldoon's and stuff, but a number of times, especially for St. Patrick's Day, but haven't been to Dooley O'Toole's. I have to do that.
It's a great, great spot. They're just south of downtown in Carmel. Okay, number 4 here. On this day in 1964, the Houston Major League Baseball franchise changed its name to the Astros. By what name did the Houston Astros go by for their first 3 seasons?
It was a Colt 45s.
Oh, man.
Bruce.
Man.
Look
He
at
may not know the
that.
76ers, but he knew his Colt 45s. It's a great name, by the way.
Baseball.
Yeah, that's great. All right,
Well,
here we go.
got baseball to end it.
Hey, you'll like it. Question number 5, Bruce.
That pitcher Richards that ended up having a heart attack. He pitched for them.
Well, there you go. The more you know. From 1979 through 1981, the National League Rookie of the Year was a Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher. Of the following, which did not win NL Rookie of the Year between 1979 and 1981? Dave Stewart, Fernando I knew I was going to butcher that. Valenzuela, Rick Sutcliffe, Steve Howe. I was over here practicing the name, too.
Oh, geez. I know I saw Fernando when he came up in 81. I know he won it. I know that Al won it, I think, as a reliever.
Some talk of this guy potentially starting a Major League Baseball franchise in Nashville. Or trying to, I should say.
What were the other 2 options?
The other 2, Rick Sutcliffe, Dave Stewart.
Yeah. Didn't win Rookie of the Year. I'd have to go with Sutcliffe.
Bruce, what's on the weekend agenda?
Watching the games for sure. I love to watch Purdue play, even though they were a disappointment, in the NCAAs. I think this year they're going to be a lot better. And the Colts, Tennessee, kind of has lost a little bit of luster. Neither of them right up at the top, but there's a lot of good sports this weekend.
There is. Late one tonight for the Boilers. It's a 9 o'clock tip at Northwestern. All right, stay on the line no matter what happens here, Bruce. The head-to-head series, Colts and Titans, 36-22. Colts.
Loud and proud.
If I'm looking at the other ones, number 4 there, Jim Irsay, Colt 45s.
Yeah, he got that one right.
Correct.
That was impressive.
2, 3, and 5, though, not so much.
Trust the process, not in the resonating of Bruce. 76ers for both 2 and 3 there. On who can't win. Not the Bobcats, Mark.
Not the Bobcats.
I like that. That's a wrinkle.
Dave Stewart for number 5 there. Bruce, stay on the line. Appreciate that. All right, we'll round it out here and give our picks to end the show. It's the Wake Up Call. KB and Andy on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
If you're struggling with opioids,
Wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, final segment of the show. Bit of fun show today on this, I'd say Football Friday, but tons going on with the hiring of the new coach there at Indiana. Again, Curt Cignetti going to be on with JMV today at 5:30. You missed that, any of our conversation, Query and Company at noon, 107.5thefan.com. Fellas, are we ready to pick this game? Do we feel confident before we send in our picks?
No.
And they post them on the Twitter machine, and if we're wrong, everyone bashes us. Remember, was it week 2 or 3 where Mo Alley Cox bashed us? It was the Ravens game, was it not?
Game, yeah.
I missed that.
Was it the Ravens game?
Yeah, it was the Ravens game, because everyone at the Fan took the Ravens.
Boy, I'm seeing this video of Curt Cignetti getting off the plane in Bloomington, and you got the cheerleaders and the band out there to welcome him. It looks miserable out there. Look at this weather.
Where do I need to go? Peegs to see this, or who's got
No, he actually tweeted out himself.
Oh, did he? Now, does he?
Curt Cignetti. He hasn't updated things. It's still JMU coach on.
I was about to say
Twitter.
he keeps his account from JMU. Boy, I tell you, it does look nasty.
Now, I guess maybe it's a little bit of a. This is what IU football is. It's your job to make it sunny skies. I will say this before we get into our picks here for Colts and Titans. I did, and I know it's just a press release statement, but I did like the first sentence of the Curt Cignetti quote of, "I'm excited to lead this program forward and change the culture, mindset, and expectation level of Hoosier football." I mean, in politically incorrect terms, IU football's a joke, and frankly, it's been a joke for multiple decades.
Oh, it's a punchline, sure.
So that approach, I mean, he's spot on because the culture's got issues, the mindset has got issues, and the expectation level. Andy, 3.5 wins. That's what Vegas had them pegged for this season.
Yeah, what, year 7?
3.5 wins. You can schedule your way to 4 wins in college football, and Indiana didn't even meet that 3.5.
Well, that's why IU bought out of the Indiana game. That's why they bought out of that
Louisville game, yeah.
The Louisville game. That's why they bought out of that game. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's a home run hire. What I've said is you need someone to raise the profile of your program, and I think this is a guy, his accolades show that he can do that, and that is vital as well. Do we know, and I don't know if you know, so I'm putting you on the spot, the private jet that delivered Coach Sig, whose is that? Do we know?
Yeah,
Which boosters is that?
Yeah, I thought it was a dude that's pumped on. And you imagine me calling him the dude, and
dude.
He can wipe my what with $100 bills. I believe the guy who spearheaded the big change down there for the golf course, Ned Fow Golf Course.
Okay, all right.
I think I want to say he's a Floyd Central area, or maybe has some offspring down in that area.
Okay.
If that rings a bell at all.
I always just wonder those things because it's got to be somebody.
Yeah.
It's got to be someone that loans the plane.
I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe there was some Andy Moore, Steve Hankey. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Is there Seeger and Jasper? I don't know. Maybe I'm not on top of my Indiana boosters there. All right. Colts-Titans coming up Sunday, 1 o'clock. Again, a rematch of Week 5. So much has changed. That was Ryan Tannehill versus Anthony Richardson. Sunday will be Will Levis versus Gardner Minshew. Obviously, no Jonathan Taylor. Now, that was his first game back, so he really didn't get a whole lot of run in that game. Zach Moss had the big game. DeAndre Hopkins had the big game. Grover Stewart will not be playing. He played in that first matchup. Key guy for Tennessee, and Tahir Tart is playing. Kevin Byard, their longtime safety, played in that matchup. He's not in this one. Who wants to start here? Mark, Andy?
Mark, you go ahead.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and go first before you get off to Disney?
I have zero confidence in my pick. I went back and forth because this game...
It's tough.
Yeah, so I went to the old... I did arbitrary win-loss back before the season started. So what did I even pick? I don't even remember. I had them beating the Titans in Week 5. I have the Titans winning in this one, so I'm going to go with that one. I think it's going to be a close one, though. Titans 21, Colts 20.
21-20, Mark Dykton is on record. You want me to go to next? I'll go next. If you look at just the Sagarin ratings, it's just a number. You would think that the Colts would be very high on the Sagarin ratings and the Titans would be low. They're actually, KB, right next to each other if you look at this predictor. So the Colts being favored by a point and a half, whatever it's going to end up being. Sagarin says the Titans should be favored by 2 points. They're about even even in that predictor. Now, the ESPN predictor has the Colts winning this game. I need to look exactly what that is because it's changed during the week. I have struggled. I am like Mark Dykton here. I have struggled with this game. 57% is the ESPN predictor. I think it's a close game. I think actually the over could hit. To me in this game, are the Colts going to let a rookie quarterback beat them? The pass rush, turning him over, making him feel uncomfortable is so key in this game. What's also interesting to me, Vrabel and Steichen both can do some quirky things. You know, last weekend I thought Steichen out-coached Todd Bowles and company. We'll see if he can do that. Vrabel, a very good coach. Tentatively, listen, I'm going 23-17 Colts. I'm going to say the Colts win and they get 4 in a row. But much like Mark, I have no confidence. I had confidence in Tampa Bay, New England, Carolina. Very little confidence in this pick.
Yeah, I've been pretty torn on this as well. You know, early in the season, I would fall back on this a lot. The opposing team has a bad offensive line. The Colts' defensive line should be able to take full advantage. Now, the one missing ingredient for the Colts in that this weekend is, again, it's the last game without Grover Stewart. And I just feel like they've played with fire without him throughout this stretch. They've gotten away with it in a couple of games. I'm going to say they don't get away with it.
Okay.
On Sunday, though. I'm going to go Titans 19-16. I think it'll be ugly. Nick Folk is a very accomplished kicker. We know Matt Gay is a very good kicker as well. But, you know, that reverse of what happened in Week 5. It was Tennessee not converting in short yardage, the Colts converting in short yardage. That was literally the difference if you look at that fourth quarter and how it played out. I think the reverse happens on Sunday. There's probably a little PTSD, Andy, from me and just Tennessee's history with Indianapolis.
We talked about that earlier.
Vrabel's history.
Yeah.
I probably should be paying a little bit more attention to Tennessee's bad offensive line, Will Levis's inconsistency, but I just can't get away from Stewart not being in the lineup on Sunday. The other, I think, big one to watch for Colts fans this weekend, again, you've got 6-5 Broncos, 6-5 Texans. Those are the two other 6-5 teams with the Colts right now in the AFC. Again, the Colts are above both of them based off tiebreakers. I think you want Houston because you play them at the end of the season.
And you've beat them.
And you've beat them, and it's here. So you have control, and you already have the early head-to-head tiebreaker. Whereas Denver, their schedule is a little bit, I think, easier down the stretch, and you don't have the opportunity to play them and get the head-to-head. But I think that's the other big one to watch this weekend.
Yeah, I would even throw on top of it, you know, the Rams are a field goal favorite against the Browns right now. I would just throw that in there because, you know, the Browns are sitting right above the Colts, and they beat the Colts. If you could ever knock them back to 7-5. But in the end, if you're a Colts fan, you obviously want to win this game. But your team has positioned themselves to where we are now in December. It's crazy to say, right? Week 13 or whatever it is. We are now in December, and you are a playoff team if things were to start today. And I think the Colts win.
Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy